There are two types of people in this world. The first kind crumbles under pressure. Life throws challenges at them, and they panic. They let emotions control them, drown in stress, and when things don't go their way, they break. They make excuses, avoid discomfort, and stay trapped in their own minds, wishing things were easier instead of becoming stronger. The second kind is different. They're unshakable. No matter what happens, failures, betrayals, disappointments, uncertainty, they stand firm. They don't waste time complaining, they don't let emotions control them, and they don't give in to self-pity. Instead, they adjust, endure, and grow stronger. Which one are you? And more importantly, which one do you want to be? Mental strength is what separates those who succeed from those who stay stuck. The people who are most respected, admired, and powerful in life aren't necessarily the smartest or most talented. They have something deeper. They have trained their minds to handle anything. When life is unfair, they don't break, they adapt. When fear whispers, they don't run, they face it. When obstacles appear, they don't stop, they find a way through. That's what you're about to build. Right now, you might be struggling. Maybe you overthink everything. Maybe fear and doubt control your decisions. Maybe stress overwhelms you, or emotions push you around like a storm. Maybe you let the opinions of others shape your life more than your own values. But that's about to change. Over the next 3 hours, you are going to train your mind for absolute mental strength using the battle-tested wisdom of Stoicism. This is not about motivation or positive thinking. This is real training. These are the same principles that built warriors, emperors, and philosophers, people who faced war, loss, betrayal, suffering, and even death without fear. You will learn how to stand firm under pressure. You will develop the ability to say no without guilt. You will stop caring about things that don't matter. You will turn failures into advantages. You will train your mind like a muscle, pushing through resistance until you become unbreakable. And by the end of this, you won't recognize yourself. This is not just another lesson. This is mental warfare. And it starts now. There comes a moment in life when you realize that comfort has made you weak, that the softness of routine, the avoidance of discomfort, the endless search for ease has drained something out of you. You see others struggling through challenges with unshakable strength, facing uncertainty without fear, and you wonder, what do they have that I don't? The answer is mental fortitude. Most people live in reaction mode. They let problems dictate their mood, let fear stop them from taking action, and let external forces decide how they feel about themselves. But there is another way to live, a way that allows you to stand firm in any storm, to endure hardship without breaking, and to cultivate an inner strength so powerful that nothing can shake it. This is the mindset of a Stoic warrior. It's not about aggression, nor is it about becoming cold or emotionless. It's about developing fortitude, the ability to remain strong, clear-headed, and unshaken no matter what happens. Life will test you. It will push you to your limits. It will throw obstacles your way that seem designed to break you. Without the right mindset, you will suffer, crumble under pressure, and feel like a victim of circumstances. With the right mindset, you will stand firm, endure, and emerge stronger every time. To cultivate this kind of strength, you must start by embracing hardship instead of avoiding it. The modern world encourages people to seek comfort at all costs. Soft beds, easy entertainment, fast solutions, and a culture of avoiding difficulty at all costs. But comfort is a trap. It dulls your senses, weakens your will, and makes you fragile in the face of real challenges. A Stoic warrior seeks out discomfort, not because suffering is the goal, but because hardship is the training ground for mental resilience. Strength is not something you are born with. It is something you build. Every time you willingly endure a difficulty, you forge a stronger mind. When you resist the urge to complain about small inconveniences, when you choose to push through discomfort instead of retreating, when you hold yourself to higher standards, even when no one is watching, you are training yourself to handle the greater difficulties that life will inevitably throw your way. One of the most powerful ways to develop inner fortitude is by changing your relationship with pain and struggle. Most people see pain as something to be avoided, something unfair, something that ruins their life. But the Stoic warrior sees it as an opportunity. Pain is a message. It shows you where your weaknesses are. It reveals what you must work on. It tests your patience, your endurance, and your ability to remain calm when things are difficult. And the more you train yourself to see pain in this way, the less control it has over you. The greatest warriors in history did not become strong by accident. They became strong because they endured hardship without running from it. They faced brutal training, constant discipline, and a level of pressure that would break most people. But they welcomed it because they understood that suffering in training meant strength in battle. Your life is no different. The problems you face are your training ground. The struggles you endure are what will make you unbreakable. If you refuse to see them as enemies and instead embrace them as teachers, you will develop a level of mental toughness that will set you apart from everyone else. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that strength means feeling nothing. That true resilience means you never struggle, never feel pain, and never have moments of weakness. But real strength is not about denying emotions. It is about mastering them. It is about feeling fear and moving forward anyway. It is about experiencing frustration but refusing to let it control you. It is about acknowledging pain without letting it defeat you. A warrior does not fight against his emotions. He uses them. Fear sharpens his focus. Anger fuels his determination. Sadness reminds him of what truly matters. But he never lets these emotions dictate his actions. He remains in control. He chooses his response. And in doing so, he becomes unstoppable. To build this level of mastery, you must train yourself every single day. You do not wake up one morning with an unshakable mind. You forge it through discipline. You wake up and face discomfort instead of avoiding it. You take responsibility for your thoughts and actions. You do the hard things even when no one is forcing you to. You stop looking for the easy way out and instead choose the path that challenges you, because you know that is the path to strength. Another key to the Stoic warrior's mindset is the ability to separate what you can control from what you cannot. Weak minds waste time and energy worrying about things that are outside of their power. They obsess over what people think of them, over outcomes they cannot change, over the past that cannot be undone. This drains their strength, leaving them frustrated and powerless. A strong mind focuses only on what is within its control. It does not waste energy on what others say or do. It does not dwell on things that cannot be changed. Instead, it directs all its attention toward the one thing that truly matters, its own response to the situation. There is incredible power in this realization. Once you accept that you have no control over most external events, you become immune to their effects. If someone insults you, it doesn't matter. You control your reaction. If plans fall apart, it doesn't matter. You adjust and keep moving forward. If life throws an unexpected challenge at you, you do not waste time complaining. You face it with full strength. The world is unpredictable. People will betray you. Circumstances will change. Plans will fail. But your mind belongs to you. No one can take it from you unless you allow them to. That is where your true power lies. To fully develop the mindset of a Stoic warrior, you must also learn to face fear directly. Fear is one of the greatest barriers to mental strength. It controls people, limits their actions, and keeps them trapped in lives they do not want. But fear is nothing more than an illusion. It is your mind creating scenarios that have not happened yet. And in most cases, what you fear is far worse in your mind than it will ever be in reality. The only way to break free from fear is to face it head-on. Every time you confront a fear and push through it, you weaken its grip on you. Every time you take action despite feeling afraid, you prove to yourself that fear has no real power over you. And with each victory, you build an unshakable confidence that no amount of external circumstances can break. A Stoic warrior does not avoid fear. He welcomes it, knowing that it is the fire that will forge him into something greater. He does not seek comfort. He seeks challenges. He does not look for easy paths. He looks for the road that will test him. Because he knows that the harder the path, the stronger he will become. This is not just philosophy. This is a way of living. If you commit to this mindset, if you truly dedicate yourself to training your mind every day, you will become someone that nothing can break. You will move through life with a confidence that cannot be shaken. You will handle stress, hardship, and uncertainty with a level of calm that others will admire but never understand. You will become the kind of person who thrives under pressure while others fall apart. Greater than. And that is the true power of a Stoic warrior. Not just the ability to endure, but the ability to rise, to grow, and to emerge stronger after every battle. This is the mindset that will set you apart from the weak, the lost, and the defeated. This is the mindset that will make you unstoppable. A strong mind is not just about endurance. It is not only about standing firm in the face of adversity or mastering your emotions. True mental strength also means knowing when to resist, when to draw a line, when to refuse, and when to say no without hesitation or guilt. Most people struggle with this. They agree to things they do not want to do. They allow others to push them in directions they do not want to go. They give away their time, energy, and attention to obligations that drain them, to people who do not respect them, to situations that do not serve them. And every time they do, they weaken themselves. The inability to say no is one of the biggest reasons people feel overwhelmed, exhausted, and lost in life. They let the expectations of others dictate their actions. They feel trapped by obligations they never wanted in the first place. They allow guilt to control them, saying yes when they mean no, afraid of disappointing others, afraid of being seen as selfish, afraid of conflict. But here is the truth. Every time you say yes to something that does not align with your values, you are saying no to yourself. You are prioritizing someone else's needs over your own. You are allowing your life to be controlled by forces outside of you. And the more you do this, the more you lose your sense of identity, your sense of purpose, and your ability to direct your own life. A strong mind does not hesitate. It does not allow guilt to dictate its choices. It does not give in to pressure just because it is easier in the moment. A strong mind knows that saying no is not selfish. It is necessary. It understands that boundaries are essential to protect time, energy, and personal growth. And it never allows fear of disappointing others to become a reason to betray itself. Saying no is not about being rude. It is not about rejecting people or shutting yourself off from the world. It is about clarity. It is about knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what deserves your time and effort. It is about making decisions that align with your values, rather than letting external pressures dictate your path. Most people feel guilty when they say no because they have been conditioned to believe that it is wrong. They have been taught that being agreeable, accommodating, and saying yes makes them good people, that refusing a request is rude, that setting boundaries is selfish. But this is a lie. In reality, every successful person, every strong leader, every individual who has built a meaningful life has mastered the ability to say no. They know that their time and energy are limited, and they do not waste them on things that do not serve their purpose. They are not reckless with their commitments. They do not allow guilt to push them into choices they do not want to make. And because of this, they build lives that are truly their own. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with saying no is the fear of how others will react. They worry about disappointing family, offending friends, or making people uncomfortable. They imagine worst-case scenarios where saying no leads to rejection, conflict, or loss. But this fear is an illusion. The truth is, most people respect those who have clear boundaries. They may not always like it in the moment, but over time, they recognize the strength it takes to stand firm. People who say yes to everything are not respected. They are seen as weak, easy to manipulate, and without direction. Those who cannot say no end up being taken for granted, used by others, and stretched so thin that they have nothing left for themselves. And when they finally collapse from exhaustion, the same people they tried to please are nowhere to be found. A Stoic mind does not fear disapproval. It does not seek validation through pleasing others. It knows that external opinions have no real power unless they are given power. The approval of others is fleeting and unreliable. True strength comes from within, from knowing your own values, and from refusing to compromise them for temporary acceptance. The ability to say no begins with clarity. If you do not know what you truly want, it is easy to be pulled in every direction by the demands of others. When your values are undefined, your boundaries are weak. But when you have a clear sense of purpose, your choices become simple. You do not need to hesitate or justify your decisions. You do not need to explain yourself to people who will never fully understand your path. This is why self-reflection is essential. Without it, saying no feels like a struggle, but when you know exactly what matters to you, every decision becomes easier. You no longer feel the need to seek approval. You no longer feel guilty for choosing yourself. You simply act in alignment with your values, without hesitation. Many people believe that saying no means closing doors, that rejecting a request means missing an opportunity. But in reality, every no is a yes to something else. When you say no to distractions, you say yes to focus. When you say no to toxic relationships, you say yes to inner peace. When you say no to obligations that do not serve you, you say yes to the things that do. The ability to say no without guilt also requires strength in handling pressure. Some people will not accept your refusal easily. They will try to convince you, guilt-trip you, or make you feel responsible for their emotions. But their reaction is not your responsibility. Their disappointment is not your burden to carry. Your duty is to yourself, to your growth, your peace, and your path. No one else is living your life. No one else will suffer the consequences of your choices. The people who pressure you today will not be the ones dealing with the stress, exhaustion, and regret that come from saying yes when you should have said no. That burden will fall on you, and that is why you must resist. A strong mind is not aggressive, but it is firm. It does not need to explain itself, but it also does not waver. It understands that not every request deserves a response, that not every invitation needs to be accepted, that not every obligation is worth taking on. It knows when to be generous and when to be guarded, and it refuses to be manipulated by guilt, pressure, or social expectations. Mastering the art of saying no also means letting go of the need to over-explain. Many people feel the urge to justify their refusals, to offer long explanations, to soften their stance so that others do not feel bad. But this only weakens your position. A simple, direct no is more powerful than a long-winded excuse. You do not owe anyone a reason for prioritizing yourself. The ability to say no is one of the greatest acts of self-respect. It is an acknowledgement that your time is valuable, that your energy is sacred, that your life is yours to direct. It is the mark of a person who is in control of themselves, who does not live according to the expectations of others, who is not swayed by fear or guilt. At first, setting boundaries feels uncomfortable. The habit of saying yes is deeply ingrained. The fear of rejection lingers. But over time, as you strengthen your ability to say no, you begin to see the transformation. You reclaim your time. You feel less stressed. You gain more respect, not just from others, but from yourself. Your mind becomes lighter. Your focus becomes sharper. You begin to live on your own terms rather than constantly bending to the will of others. And once you taste this freedom, you will never go back. This is what true strength looks like, not just enduring difficulty, but resisting the forces that try to pull you away from your path. This is the power of rational resistance. This is how you say no without guilt, without fear, and without hesitation. Strength is not just about resisting external pressure. It is not just about saying no to the demands of others. True strength is built from within, rooted in an unshakable mind that cannot be penetrated by fear, doubt, or the noise of the world. Without this foundation, resistance becomes exhausting, and discipline crumbles under pressure. The mind must be fortified like a fortress, impenetrable to negativity, immune to manipulation, and resilient against the chaos of life. Most people live with an exposed mind, open to every criticism, every distraction, every fleeting emotion. Their thoughts are scattered, their focus fragile, their inner world constantly shaped by outside forces. They are pulled in every direction, unable to hold their ground, swayed by public opinion, overwhelmed by stress, and defeated by their own insecurities. They feel exhausted because their mental defenses are weak, allowing anything and everything to disrupt their inner peace. A fortified mind does not operate this way. It is not an open battlefield where anything can invade. It is a fortress with walls so strong that nothing unwanted enters. Criticism does not wound it. External chaos does not disturb it. The shifting moods of others do not weaken it. It is grounded in clarity, built on self-mastery, and shielded from distractions that weaken focus and drain energy. Building such a fortress begins with controlling what is allowed into the mind. The world constantly bombards people with information, some useful, most harmful. Every news headline, every conversation, every criticism, every negative comment is a potential entry point into the mind. Those without control let everything in, allowing their peace to be disrupted by things that do not matter. They absorb fear from the media, insecurities from social comparisons, and doubts from the opinions of others. Their minds are filled with clutter, leaving no space for focus, no room for strength. The first step in fortification is guarding mental space with the same vigilance that a warrior guards his home. Not everything deserves attention. Not every conversation is worth engaging in. Not every criticism is worth responding to. Just as a fortress has strong walls to keep intruders out, the mind must have boundaries to reject the distractions and negativity that seek to weaken it. This requires discernment, the ability to recognize what deserves entry and what must be ignored. Those who build strong minds are selective. They do not entertain gossip. They do not dwell on insults. They do not waste energy debating with people who do not matter. They refuse to engage in mental battles that do not serve them. Their focus is sharp, their attention protected, their mind filled only with thoughts that strengthen them rather than weaken them. A key element of fortifying the mind is developing emotional discipline. Many people believe their emotions are out of their control, that feelings arise without warning and must be obeyed. But a strong mind understands that emotions are not commands, they are merely signals. Fear does not mean retreat. Anger does not mean action. Sadness does not mean surrender. A fortified mind observes emotions without being ruled by them. Most people are enslaved by their emotions. A single insult can ruin their day. A minor inconvenience can throw them into frustration. A small setback can make them question their abilities. Their emotions dictate their reactions, pushing them into decisions they later regret. They act impulsively, react irrationally, and lose control over their own thoughts. A strong mind does not allow this. It observes emotions, but does not obey them blindly. It acknowledges anger, but does not lash out. It feels fear, but does not run. It experiences disappointment, but does not dwell on it. By mastering this discipline, the mind becomes untouchable, immune to manipulation, and unbreakable under stress. Another layer of mental fortification is detachment from external validation. Many people are trapped by the need for approval. They shape their actions, their words, and even their thoughts based on what others might think. Their confidence rises and falls based on the opinions of strangers. A single negative comment can make them doubt themselves. A lack of recognition makes them feel invisible. Their self-worth is fragile because it is built on something outside of their control. A fortified mind does not depend on others for validation. It does not seek applause. It does not fear criticism. It does not require reassurance. It is secure in its own values, confident in its own direction, and indifferent to the shifting opinions of the crowd. It does not need to be seen or praised to feel worthy. It stands strong on its own foundation, unmoved by external approval or disapproval. Training the mind to reject external validation requires a shift in focus. Instead of seeking approval, the mind must seek integrity, the alignment of actions with personal values, regardless of who notices. The fortified mind does not ask, "Do they like me?" It asks, "Am I living according to my principles?" It does not wonder, "Will they accept me?" It decides, "I accept myself." When self-worth comes from within, it cannot be taken away by anyone else. One of the greatest threats to mental fortitude is overexposure to distraction. The modern world is designed to weaken focus. Endless notifications, constant entertainment, an infinite stream of information. These are the weapons that erode mental strength. A mind that is constantly distracted is a mind that is easily controlled. It is scattered, unable to concentrate, incapable of deep thought. It jumps from one impulse to another, consuming rather than creating, reacting rather than thinking. A fortified mind is disciplined in its attention. It does not allow technology to control it. It does not jump at every notification, respond to every message, or waste time in endless scrolling. It knows that focus is power, and that protecting attention is the key to control. Instead of being a passive consumer, it becomes a deliberate thinker, choosing carefully what deserves its time. This discipline extends beyond technology. It applies to all forms of mental consumption: books, conversations, entertainment, and even the words spoken in self-talk. All of these shape the mind. A strong mind is intentional about what it absorbs. It does not allow garbage to enter. It chooses material that strengthens, thoughts that empower, and conversations that add value. Another crucial aspect of mental fortification is the rejection of victimhood. Many people weaken themselves by seeing life through the lens of unfairness. They blame circumstances, complain about difficulties, and see themselves as powerless against external forces. This mindset strips them of control, making them passive observers rather than active participants in their own lives. A fortified mind refuses to be a victim. It does not dwell on what is unfair. It does not waste energy blaming others. It focuses only on what can be controlled, on what can be changed, and on the actions that can be taken. It does not surrender to self-pity. It does not allow hardship to create a sense of helplessness. It takes full ownership of every situation, choosing response over reaction, action over complaint. This level of fortification doesn't happen overnight. It is built daily, through small decisions that reinforce strength. Every time the mind chooses discipline over distraction, it strengthens itself. Every time it rejects validation from others, it becomes more independent. Every time it refuses to be ruled by emotions, it gains power. Every time it takes ownership instead of making excuses, it reinforces its walls. The result is a mind that cannot be broken, a mind that does not waver under pressure, does not crumble under criticism, does not bow to fear or external control. A mind that is self-sufficient, clear, and untouchable. This is the fortress that protects inner peace. This is the stronghold that shields against manipulation, stress, and weakness. This is the foundation of true mental strength. A strong mind does not resist reality. It reshapes it. Obstacles, setbacks, and hardships are unavoidable, but how they are perceived determines whether they weaken or strengthen a person. Most people see challenges as something to endure, problems as something to complain about, and difficulties as reasons to feel defeated. But those who master their minds see things differently. They understand that no event is inherently good or bad. It's only the meaning assigned to it that makes it so. This is the essence of reverse thinking, the ability to mentally flip challenges into advantages. The world does not hand out fairness. It does not make life easy. Struggles appear without warning, failures happen despite effort, and unexpected difficulties test patience and endurance. But the difference between those who rise and those who fall is not their circumstances, but how they frame those circumstances. A weak mind sees failure as an end, rejection as a loss, and hardship as suffering. A strong mind sees failure as a teacher, rejection as redirection, and hardship as an opportunity for growth. Reverse thinking is not about ignoring reality or pretending that problems do not exist. It is about reshaping perspective to extract value from every situation, no matter how negative it appears. When faced with a challenge, most people focus on what they have lost, what has gone wrong, and what they wish was different. They dwell on the unfairness, replay worst-case scenarios, and allow difficulties to drain their energy. But this reaction is a choice, not an inevitability. The mind can be trained to see something else, what can be gained, what can be learned, and how the difficulty itself can become an asset rather than a burden. This mental shift requires conscious effort. The natural response to hardship is resistance. The mind instinctively fights against discomfort, wishing it away, seeing it as an enemy. But resistance only creates suffering. When hardship is viewed as something negative that must be avoided, the mind becomes trapped in frustration, anger, and helplessness. By reversing this approach, suffering is reduced, and obstacles become fuel for growth rather than sources of distress. A key aspect of reverse thinking is recognizing that difficulty is not an interruption of progress. It is the path to progress. Every great achievement, every personal transformation, every moment of strength is built on challenges. Without resistance, there is no growth. A tree that faces no wind develops weak roots. A muscle that is never strained remains weak. A mind that is never tested stays fragile. The strongest people are not those who have avoided hardship, but those who have learned to use it. The ability to reframe difficulties is what allows someone to remain calm in the face of adversity. A person who believes that struggles are unfair will always feel like a victim. But someone who sees struggle as training develops an entirely different approach. They do not complain about difficulty. They welcome it as a chance to sharpen their skills, to develop resilience, and to learn something that could not be learned in comfort. Reframing challenges also removes fear. Many people avoid taking risks, stepping out of their comfort zone, or facing difficult situations because they associate them with failure, embarrassment, or loss. But when failure is no longer seen as an end, when embarrassment is no longer feared, and when loss is recognized as a teacher, there is no reason to hesitate. The fear that holds most people back disappears when challenges are seen as gifts rather than threats. The strongest minds do not simply endure hardship, they turn it into an advantage. If they experience failure, they analyze what went wrong, adapt, and improve. If they encounter rejection, they take it as redirection rather than personal insult. If they face an obstacle, they ask how it can make them stronger rather than why it happened. Every experience becomes useful, every setback becomes training, and every difficulty becomes a source of strength. One of the most powerful applications of reverse thinking is in dealing with criticism. Most people take criticism personally, allowing it to damage their confidence or fuel their anger. They react defensively, either shutting down or fighting back. But someone who has mastered reverse thinking understands that criticism is one of the greatest tools for growth. It is a direct insight into weaknesses, a mirror that reveals what needs improvement. Even unfair or harsh criticism can be useful. It exposes what triggers emotional reactions, highlighting areas where mental discipline can be strengthened. Another important aspect of this mindset is learning to reframe failure. Most people fear failure because they see it as evidence of inadequacy. They believe that if they do not succeed immediately, they are not good enough. But failure is only final for those who stop trying. Every failure contains data. It reveals weaknesses, exposes blind spots, and provides valuable lessons that cannot be learned through success alone. A strong mind does not fear failure. It extracts every lesson possible from it, making future success even more likely. Reframing rejection is equally important. Many people take rejection as a personal attack, believing it means they are unworthy or not good enough. But rejection is nothing more than misalignment. It simply means that something was not the right fit, whether it was a relationship, a job, or an opportunity. When rejection is seen as redirection, it removes emotional suffering. Instead of feeling defeated, the focus shifts to what is next, with the understanding that something better will come from the experience. Reverse thinking also applies to unexpected hardships. Life does not follow a predictable path. Sudden problems arise, financial struggles, health issues, personal losses. The immediate reaction is often frustration or despair, but a mind trained in reverse thinking immediately shifts to what can be gained from the situation. Every hardship contains lessons, even if they are not immediately clear. Strength is built by responding to difficulty with resilience rather than resistance. This mental approach is not just about surviving challenges. It is about using them to accelerate growth. When difficulty is seen as an advantage, it no longer weakens. It strengthens. It sharpens focus, builds character, and increases adaptability. People who develop this mindset do not just recover from setbacks, they come back stronger every time. The greatest power of reverse thinking is that it removes the illusion of control over external events. Most people waste energy trying to change things outside of their control, resisting reality, wishing things were different. This is a futile effort that only leads to frustration. But when the focus shifts from controlling events to controlling perception, everything changes. External circumstances lose their power because no event is inherently negative. It is only the mind's reaction that determines its effect. When applied consistently, this approach creates unshakable mental resilience. A person who masters reverse thinking cannot be broken by circumstances. They cannot be controlled by fear. They do not waste energy resisting reality. They adapt, they grow, and they find opportunity where others see defeat. Their mind becomes a weapon, one that turns every setback into progress, every hardship into training, and every challenge into strength. This is not just a technique. It is a way of life. It is the foundation of an unbreakable mind. It is the mindset that transforms ordinary individuals into exceptional ones. It is the difference between those who stay stuck and those who rise, between those who see problems and those who see solutions, between those who are defeated by life and those who use every challenge to become stronger than before. A mind that controls its perception has already won half the battle. When challenges are no longer seen as problems but as tools for growth, external events lose their power. But there is another layer of mastery beyond reframing challenges: full control over emotions. Most people are not led by reason, nor by principles, nor by deliberate choices. They are led by their emotions, reacting without thinking, shifting moods based on external forces, and allowing feelings to dictate their decisions. A person without emotional autonomy is like a ship without a captain, constantly swayed by the waves of life, moving wherever the wind pushes. Without control over emotions, there is no control over life. Emotional autonomy is the ability to feel without being ruled by feelings. It is not the suppression of emotions, but the mastery of them. It is the power to remain composed under stress, to make decisions based on logic rather than impulse, and to experience emotions without allowing them to dictate actions. Most people confuse feeling with obedience. They believe that anger means they must lash out, that sadness means they must withdraw, that fear means they must stop. But emotions are not commands. They are signals, useful information, but not instructions that must be followed. A person who lacks emotional control is at the mercy of their surroundings. If someone offends them, they become angry. If plans go wrong, they become frustrated. If a situation is uncertain, they feel anxious. Their peace is fragile because it depends on everything going smoothly. This is why emotional autonomy is so rare. It requires the ability to separate feelings from actions, to recognize emotions without allowing them to hijack thoughts and behaviors. Those who master it develop an unshakable calm, a level of inner stability that is unaffected by the chaos around them. To reach this level, there must be a shift in how emotions are understood. Most people treat emotions as if they are truths. They believe that if they feel something strongly, it must mean something significant. But emotions are not facts. They are temporary, often exaggerated, and influenced by countless factors: sleep, diet, stress levels, past experiences, and even subconscious biases. They are unreliable guides for decision-making. A single moment of anger can lead to a decision that ruins years of effort. A fleeting burst of insecurity can cause someone to abandon an opportunity they would have succeeded in. The ability to pause, to detach from the feeling and analyze it with reason, is what separates those who are controlled by their emotions from those who control them. One of the most damaging habits that weakens emotional autonomy is reacting immediately. Most emotional mistakes happen in the heat of the moment. When something triggers a response, there is a brief window before action. This is the most important moment. Weak minds react impulsively, allowing the first emotion to dictate behavior. Strong minds use that moment to assess, to question whether the reaction is logical, whether it serves them, whether it aligns with their values. By inserting a pause between stimulus and response, emotional control is established. The ability to delay reaction also reduces the power of external forces. When people realize that their words, actions, and attempts to provoke no longer elicit an immediate response, their influence disappears. The person who remains calm when insulted, composed when criticized, and steady when confronted holds power over the situation. Emotional control is not just about personal peace. It is also a form of quiet dominance. When others lose control, the one who remains steady becomes the leader, the person everyone looks to for guidance. The practice of emotional autonomy also extends to expectations. Most emotional suffering comes from unmet expectations, expecting fairness from an unfair world, expecting kindness from others, expecting things to go as planned. When expectations are rigid, reality constantly disappoints, creating unnecessary frustration and sadness. But when expectations are reduced or eliminated, there is nothing to be thrown off by. The less that is expected from others and from the world, the more peace remains. This does not mean becoming indifferent, but rather developing a mindset where nothing is owed, where every positive outcome is a bonus rather than an entitlement. There is also the matter of internal dialogue. Emotions are often intensified by the way the mind speaks to itself. A minor inconvenience can turn into deep frustration if the internal narrative exaggerates it. A moment of rejection can become unbearable if the mind starts repeating, "I am not good enough." Most people do not question their thoughts. They assume that because they think something, it must be true. But thoughts are just as unreliable as emotions. They can be distorted, influenced by fear, bias, and past conditioning. Developing emotional autonomy requires scrutinizing internal dialogue, questioning whether a thought is rational or if it is simply a reaction based on old patterns. A strong mind does not allow itself to be consumed by unnecessary emotions. It does not dwell on things that do not matter. It does not allow itself to spiral into overthinking, regret, or worry. Instead, it focuses only on what is useful. This is why emotional autonomy leads to greater energy and clarity. Most exhaustion is not physical, it is emotional. It is the result of wasted energy on pointless arguments, unnecessary worries, and self-inflicted suffering over things that are outside of control. By refusing to engage in these emotional drains, more energy is available for what actually matters. Another important aspect of emotional autonomy is learning to accept emotions without judgment. Many people feel guilty for experiencing certain emotions, believing that if they feel fear, they must be weak, or if they feel anger, they must be an aggressive person. But emotions are not flaws. They are natural. The problem is not in feeling them, but in allowing them to take control. Acceptance of emotions is different from obedience to them. A person can feel nervous before an important task, but still move forward. They can feel sadness without falling into despair. They can feel anger without losing composure. By acknowledging emotions without reacting impulsively, their power is reduced. Control over emotions also strengthens relationships. Most conflicts are escalated because of emotional reactions. Words spoken in anger, defensiveness triggered by insecurity, assumptions made without clarity. A person who has full control over their emotions can de-escalate conflicts rather than feeding them. They do not take things personally, they do not become defensive at the slightest provocation, and they do not allow ego to dictate their responses. They listen without reacting, respond with thought rather than impulse, and diffuse tension rather than adding to it. This is why emotionally strong people often appear wise, because they do not allow fleeting emotions to disrupt communication or distort perception. Emotional control also eliminates the problem of external validation. Many people are emotionally dependent on how others perceive them. If they are praised, they feel good. If they are criticized, they feel bad. Their self-worth fluctuates based on external feedback, making them emotionally unstable. But a person who has mastered their emotions is not swayed by this. Their self-worth is internal. They do not need approval to feel confident, nor do they crumble under criticism. They remain steady regardless of how they are perceived, because their emotional state is not dictated by others. Another aspect of emotional autonomy is controlling where attention goes. Many emotional struggles are self-inflicted, caused by focusing on things that serve no purpose. People replay past mistakes, dwell on insults, and feed negative emotions by repeatedly thinking about things that upset them. But the mind is under control, and attention is a choice. A person who refuses to focus on what does not serve them gains immediate power. Instead of feeding negativity, they redirect attention to what strengthens them. This is not avoidance, it is discipline. It is the ability to decide what is worth thinking about and what is not. A person with emotional autonomy is not easily provoked. They are not controlled by moods. They do not let external events dictate how they feel. They remain steady in chaos, calm under pressure, and unmoved by trivial matters. Their peace is not fragile. It is built on mastery, on the ability to regulate emotions rather than be controlled by them. Greater than. Developing this level of control takes practice. It is a daily discipline, a continuous refinement of responses. But the rewards are immense. There is a kind of power in being untouchable, in knowing that no matter what happens, inner peace remains intact. When emotions no longer dictate actions, life becomes clearer. Decisions improve, energy is preserved, relationships become stronger, and most importantly, a deep and lasting sense of freedom emerges. The kind of freedom that can only come from within. Emotional autonomy creates a foundation of inner stability, but there is one force that still holds power over most minds: fear. It shapes choices, limits potential, and dictates behavior in ways most people do not even realize. Fear is the reason people hesitate when they should act, retreat when they should advance, and remain trapped in situations that no longer serve them. It disguises itself as logic, convincing people to stay in their comfort zones, to avoid discomfort, to seek security over growth. But fear is not an enemy. It is a training ground. It is not a signal to stop, but an invitation to sharpen the mind, to build resilience, and to step forward into something greater. Most people live under the illusion that fear is something to be avoided. They believe that if they feel fear, it means they should turn away, that discomfort is a sign to retreat. This belief keeps them weak. The mind, like the body, grows stronger through resistance. A muscle that is never tested remains weak. A mind that is never forced to confront fear remains fragile. The only way to develop mental toughness is by stepping into fear rather than avoiding it. Those who embrace this philosophy become unshakable because they no longer see fear as a threat, but as a tool for transformation. The first step in using fear as training is recognizing that fear itself is not the problem. It is the reaction to fear that determines its power. Most people let fear control them because they assume that it is an indication of real danger. But the majority of fear is imagined. It is not based on reality, but on projections of what might happen. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of embarrassment. These are not physical threats. They are mental constructions. They exist because the mind has been conditioned to see the unknown as something to be avoided. But when this conditioning is questioned, it loses its grip. A powerful way to break the control of fear is exposure. Every time fear is avoided, it grows stronger. Every time it is faced, it weakens. A person who never speaks up because they fear judgment will remain trapped in silence. But the moment they speak despite the fear, they begin to reclaim their power. Each repetition makes the fear smaller until it no longer exists. The same applies to every fear. The only way to remove it is through direct confrontation. Strength is built through discomfort, not through avoidance. Fear also thrives on uncertainty. The mind magnifies unknown outcomes, making them appear worse than they are. Most of what people fear never actually happens, and when it does, it is rarely as bad as expected. But fear distorts perception, making worst-case scenarios seem like guarantees. The mind must be trained to question these assumptions. Instead of asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" the question must shift to, "What if I handle it?" Instead of seeing fear as a prediction, it must be seen as an opportunity to prove resilience. The only way to know the limits of personal strength is by testing them. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act despite it. The strongest people in history, those who have faced extreme adversity, did not feel fearless. They felt fear and moved forward anyway. They understood that fear is not an obstacle. It is an indicator of where growth lies. The very thing that is feared the most is often the exact thing that must be confronted. If something feels terrifying, it is a sign that it holds power. And if it holds power, overcoming it will lead to immense growth. There is also a hidden benefit to fear. It sharpens the mind. Fear forces alertness, increases focus, and heightens awareness. It brings clarity, forcing the mind to operate at a higher level. This is why elite athletes, soldiers, and performers use fear rather than fighting it. They do not try to eliminate it. They channel it. They allow the energy to sharpen their skills, to fuel their drive, to keep them engaged. Instead of seeing fear as a problem, they use it as a tool. One of the most important skills in developing mental toughness is learning to separate real fear from imagined fear. Real fear protects from physical danger. It is what stops someone from stepping in front of a moving car. But imagined fear is different. It is what stops people from speaking their mind, from taking risks, from pursuing what they truly want. It is not protective. It is restrictive. The ability to distinguish between the two is crucial. A strong mind listens to real fear, but dismisses imagined fear. It does not allow emotions to dictate choices. A key part of training the mind through fear is desensitization. Repeated exposure to fear reduces its impact. The more a person does something they once feared, the less intimidating it becomes. The mind adapts, realizing that what once seemed overwhelming is manageable. This is why those who consistently push their limits develop unshakable confidence. They have trained themselves to handle discomfort, to thrive in uncertainty, to take action even when doubt is present. Their courage is not an accident. It is the result of practice. The ability to handle fear also strengthens resilience. A person who has never faced difficulty is easily broken. They have no reference for overcoming hardship, no experience in handling setbacks. But someone who has repeatedly faced fear and pushed through it develops a deep belief in their own strength. They do not panic in difficult situations. They do not let anxiety control them. They have trained their minds to endure, and because of this, they are prepared for anything. Fear also teaches adaptability. Those who fear failure avoid new experiences, staying within the safety of what they know. But growth requires adaptability, the ability to navigate unfamiliar situations without hesitation. Fear forces adaptation. It forces the mind to become flexible, to find solutions, to adjust when things do not go as planned. Those who embrace this process become highly capable, able to handle uncertainty without stress. They trust themselves, knowing that no matter what happens, they will find a way through. Another powerful lesson from using fear as training is learning to redefine discomfort. Most people associate discomfort with something negative. They seek ease, avoiding anything that makes them uneasy. But discomfort is where transformation happens. The greatest achievements, the deepest growth, the most powerful breakthroughs all come from stepping into discomfort rather than running from it. A mind trained to embrace discomfort is unstoppable. It no longer seeks the easiest path. It seeks the right path. Using fear as training also changes the relationship with failure. People who fear failure avoid challenges, settling for mediocrity because it feels safer. But failure is not the enemy. It is part of progress. Those who push past fear understand that failure is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to use. Each failure provides information. Each setback builds resilience. Those who do not fear failure have an advantage over everyone else because they are willing to attempt what others will not. The way the mind speaks about fear also determines its effect. Those who say, "I can't do this," reinforce the idea that fear is stronger than them. But those who say, "This is difficult," but I will find a way. Shift control back to themselves. Words shape perception. A person who consistently speaks from a place of strength rather than weakness rewires their mind to be resilient. One of the greatest benefits of mastering fear is the elimination of regret. Many people look back on their lives and see missed opportunities, not because they were incapable, but because they were afraid. Fear held them back from saying what they needed to say, from taking the risks that could have changed everything, from stepping into the unknown when the moment called for it. Those who conquer fear live without this regret. They do not wonder what could have been. They know because they acted. Developing this mindset requires discipline. The habit of avoiding fear is deeply ingrained, reinforced by years of choosing comfort over challenge. But it can be broken. Each time fear is confronted, it loses power. Each time discomfort is embraced, resilience grows. The process is simple, but it requires effort. Those who commit to it gain something rare: true freedom. A person who no longer fears fear itself cannot be stopped. They do not hesitate. They do not hold back. They do not allow emotions to dictate their choices. They see fear, they acknowledge it, and they move forward anyway. And, in doing so, they develop a mind that is unbreakable, a spirit that is unstoppable, and a life that is truly their own. Fear loses its grip the moment it is confronted. A mind that no longer runs from discomfort, that no longer allows anxiety to dictate its path, becomes something rare, unshakable. But fear is not the only force that drains energy. There is another, just as powerful, just as controlling, but far more subtle. It is the tendency to care about things that do not matter. The distractions, the petty conflicts, the meaningless worries, the opinions of people who contribute nothing to growth. These are the silent thieves of mental strength. Learning to choose what deserves attention and what does not is the next step in mastering the mind. Most people exhaust themselves not because they are physically overworked, but because they waste energy on things that hold no real value. They get emotionally involved in arguments that lead nowhere. They stress over opinions that have no impact on their life. They chase approval from people who will never be satisfied. They react to every inconvenience, allowing small annoyances to disrupt their peace. Their mental energy is scattered in 1,000 directions, leaving them drained, frustrated, and unable to focus on what truly matters. A person who masters indifference does not live this way. They understand that not everything requires a reaction. They are selective with their attention, giving energy only to what aligns with their values. They do not engage in every debate, nor do they allow every external event to dictate their emotions. They conserve their strength, focusing only on what contributes to their growth and ignoring everything else. This is not passivity. It is strategic discipline. It is the conscious decision to not allow trivial matters to consume mental space. A weak mind is reactive. It gets offended easily. It feels the need to defend itself at every opportunity. It takes everything personally. It allows external events to control its inner state. A strong mind is different. It does not give its power away so easily. It knows that most things are not worth the effort. Someone disrespects them, not worth it. A stranger makes a rude comment, not worth it. An inconvenience arises, not worth it. Their focus is reserved for what actually contributes to their growth. Everything else is dismissed as noise. One of the greatest sources of wasted energy is the need to prove something to others. Many people spend their lives seeking validation, trying to convince others of their worth, arguing to be understood. But a person who has mastered indifference does not seek approval. They do not need recognition to feel secure. They live by their own values, knowing that external validation is fleeting and meaningless. If someone misunderstands them, it does not matter. If someone does not approve of their choices, it is irrelevant. Their sense of self is not built on the unstable foundation of outside opinions. Indifference also applies to emotional control. Many people allow their mood to be dictated by external events. If someone cuts them off in traffic, their day is ruined. If they receive a negative comment, they feel disrespected. If plans change unexpectedly, they become frustrated. But the person who has mastered indifference does not react to these things. They do not allow small inconveniences to create large emotions. They recognize that most things are insignificant in the long run, and because of this, they remain calm. This ability to remain unaffected is not about emotional suppression. It is about emotional discipline. It is not about being disconnected from life, but about choosing where to engage and where to let go. It is the wisdom to know which battles are worth fighting and which are meaningless. A person with this skill does not fight for the sake of fighting, does not argue for the sake of being right, and does not react for the sake of proving something. They conserve their energy for what truly matters. One of the strongest applications of strategic indifference is in handling criticism. Most people feel wounded when criticized, even when the words come from someone whose opinion should not matter. They replay the words in their minds, feel the need to respond, and allow a single comment to shape their emotions. But a strong mind does not engage in this. They do not give power to meaningless opinions. If the criticism is useful, they consider it. If it is not, they discard it. They do not waste time arguing with people who do not understand them, nor do they seek to explain themselves to those who are committed to misunderstanding. Strategic indifference also eliminates unnecessary conflicts. Many arguments happen not because they are important, but because people feel the need to respond to every disagreement. But not every disagreement requires engagement. A person who has mastered indifference knows when to speak and when to walk away. They do not feel the need to correct every false statement, to respond to every insult, or to defend every action. They understand that silence is often the most powerful response. This ability to ignore what does not serve them gives them an immense advantage. While others are drained by distractions, by petty conflicts, by endless worrying about things they cannot control, they remain clear-headed. Their focus is on progress, on discipline, on becoming stronger. Their attention is a resource, and they guard it carefully. One of the most valuable applications of this mindset is in resisting emotional manipulation. Many people are controlled through guilt, through social pressure, through the expectations of others. They feel obligated to respond, to explain, to justify themselves. But a person who has mastered indifference does not fall into this trap. They do not respond to emotional bait. They do not allow others to pull them into unnecessary drama. They remain detached from manipulation, refusing to engage in emotional games that serve no purpose. A common misunderstanding is that indifference means not caring about anything, but this is not the case. Indifference is about caring selectively. It is about choosing what deserves attention and what does not. A person who practices this is not disconnected from life. They care deeply about their values, their goals, and the things that truly matter. But they do not waste energy on distractions. They do not allow their focus to be scattered. They do not let their emotions be dictated by external forces. Indifference also creates a profound sense of freedom. Many people feel trapped because they are constantly reacting, constantly seeking approval, constantly trying to please others. But when these habits are removed, a new level of mental clarity emerges. A person who is indifferent to what does not matter moves through life with ease. They do not feel weighed down by unnecessary burdens. They do not carry the opinions of others as baggage. They are light, focused, and free. The strength of this mindset is most visible in difficult situations. When chaos arises, most people panic, react emotionally, and become overwhelmed. But the person who has mastered indifference remains steady. They do not allow external events to dictate their inner state. They do not waste time on things they cannot control. They focus on what can be done, and everything else is ignored. This level of calm under pressure makes them a natural leader, someone who others turn to for guidance. Developing strategic indifference is not about suppressing feelings. It is about learning where to place attention. It is about understanding that not every battle is worth fighting, not every event is worth reacting to, and not every emotion deserves obedience. It is the ability to stay steady in a world that constantly seeks to pull attention in 1,000 directions. A person who masters this skill does not feel drained by the meaningless. They do not waste time on what does not move them forward. They do not allow themselves to be consumed by things that do not deserve their energy. They operate from a place of focus, strength, and clarity. And in a world full of distractions, full of noise, full of unnecessary conflicts and endless demands for attention, this ability is one of the greatest forms of power. A mind that no longer wastes energy on meaningless distractions, unnecessary arguments, or external validation gains an incredible advantage. But removing external distractions is only part of the equation. There is another form of clutter, one that is far more insidious, far more exhausting. It is the internal noise, the endless overthinking, the emotional baggage, the unnecessary worries that take up space in the mind, leaving no room for clarity or focus. The next step in developing true mental strength is decluttering the mind, removing everything that does not serve a purpose, eliminating the mental weight that slows progress, and simplifying thought processes to operate with precision and resolve. Most people live in a state of mental overload. They carry too many worries, too many conflicting thoughts, too much unresolved emotion. Their minds are filled with clutter, constantly replaying past regrets, anticipating future problems, reacting to small inconveniences as if they are life-altering. They believe that thinking more means solving more, that worrying about everything means they are being responsible. But this is an illusion. More thinking does not mean better decisions. More worry does not mean better preparation. A mind that is constantly processing unnecessary information becomes weak, scattered, and drained. A strong mind is a clear mind. It is free of excess thoughts, unnecessary concerns, and repetitive worries. It focuses only on what is relevant, dismissing everything else. It does not dwell on the past. It does not obsess over the future. It does not replay conversations or analyze every small detail. It operates with simplicity, clarity, and efficiency. This is mental minimalism, a way of thinking that removes all excess so that only the essential remains. The first step in decluttering the mind is recognizing mental clutter. Many people are so accustomed to overthinking that they do not even realize how much space it takes up. They assume that constant analysis, internal debates, and looping thoughts are normal. But a mind that is overloaded with unnecessary thoughts is like a desk covered in junk. There is no space to work. The brain becomes consumed with irrelevant details, leaving no room for deep thinking, creativity, or calm. Every unresolved thought, every small worry, every unnecessary piece of information takes up valuable mental real estate. A clear mind is selective. It does not hold on to everything. It filters information, keeping only what is useful and discarding what is not. Just as a minimalist home is free of excess possessions, a minimalist mind is free of excess thoughts. It does not hoard memories that serve no purpose. It does not cling to regrets. It does not replay old mistakes. It does not hold on to emotional baggage that weighs it down. It keeps only what strengthens it. One of the most effective ways to declutter the mind is letting go of unresolved emotions. Many people carry emotional baggage for years, sometimes decades, without realizing how much energy it drains. They hold on to grudges, replay old conflicts, and relive painful experiences that no longer have any relevance. But the past is unchangeable. Holding on to emotional pain does not alter what happened. It only burdens the present. A clear mind does not hold on to unnecessary emotions. It processes them, learns from them, and releases them. Overthinking is another major source of mental clutter. Many believe that thinking more means making better decisions, but most thinking is useless repetition. The same thoughts cycle over and over, leading nowhere. Overthinking creates hesitation, doubt, and mental exhaustion. A person who overthinks every decision struggles to take action, constantly questioning, constantly analyzing, constantly fearing the wrong choice. But in reality, most decisions do not require excessive thought. A clear mind makes decisions quickly and efficiently, trusting logic and experience rather than endless internal debates. Simplifying decision-making is a key aspect of mental minimalism. Many people struggle with decision fatigue, the exhaustion that comes from making too many choices every day. Small, unnecessary decisions pile up, leaving less mental energy for what truly matters. A person with a cluttered mind spends time debating insignificant choices: what to wear, what to eat, whether to respond to a message immediately or later. But these decisions are irrelevant. A clear mind minimizes decision fatigue by automating small choices, focusing mental energy only on what is important. Mental clarity also requires detaching from external noise. In the modern world, information overload is one of the greatest threats to focus. News, social media, advertisements, endless notifications, all of these flood the mind with irrelevant information. Most of it is not useful. It distracts, overstimulates, and consumes mental energy without adding anything of value. A person who is constantly consuming external information has no space left for original thought, no room for stillness, no ability to think deeply. A clear mind does not allow itself to be flooded with unnecessary input. It controls its environment, limiting distractions, choosing carefully what to consume, and leaving space for real focus. Another major source of mental clutter is attachment to control. Many people struggle because they try to control everything: how others think, how situations unfold, how the future plays out. They spend energy worrying about things outside of their control, obsessing over outcomes, trying to predict every possible scenario. But control is an illusion. The world is unpredictable, people are unpredictable, and the future is uncertain. A mind that tries to control everything is constantly tense, constantly anxious, constantly working against reality. But a mind that lets go of control gains freedom. It focuses only on what can be changed and releases everything else. Letting go of perfectionism is another essential part of mental minimalism. Many people waste enormous amounts of energy trying to get everything exactly right, afraid to make mistakes, obsessed with tiny details that do not matter. But perfection does not exist. No action, no project, no decision will ever be flawless. A clear mind does not chase impossible standards. It focuses on progress, not perfection. It takes action, makes adjustments, and moves forward rather than getting stuck in an endless cycle of refinement and hesitation. Mental minimalism also requires decluttering relationships. Many people keep connections out of habit, engaging in interactions that drain energy rather than add value. They maintain relationships that no longer serve them, hold on to obligations they do not want, and allow toxic influences into their lives. But every relationship takes up mental space. A person who keeps unnecessary connections weakens their focus, spreading their energy too thin. A clear mind prioritizes quality over quantity. It keeps only the relationships that are meaningful, removing those that create unnecessary stress, drama, or distraction. Developing a clear mind also means eliminating self-imposed pressure. Many people exhaust themselves by taking on too much, saying yes to everything, trying to do too many things at once. They believe that being busy means being productive, but this is false. Productivity is not about doing more, it is about doing less with greater focus. A cluttered mind is constantly multitasking, juggling 100 thoughts at once, never fully present. A clear mind operates in a straight line. It focuses on one task at a time, fully engaged, without distraction. A powerful way to maintain mental clarity is establishing routines. The more structured the mind's environment, the less mental energy is wasted. A strong routine removes the need for constant decision-making, allowing focus to be directed toward what truly matters. A cluttered mind wakes up each day reacting, checking messages, making random decisions, starting tasks without direction. A clear mind begins the day with intention, with a structured plan, with a clear sense of what deserves attention and what does not. Clarity also comes from pausing. Most people fill every moment with stimulation, noise, conversations, screens, distractions. But the mind needs stillness. Without it, thoughts become tangled, ideas become scattered, and emotions become overwhelming. A clear mind creates space for silence. It allows thoughts to settle, emotions to process, and focus to sharpen. It does not fill every moment with activity. It knows that stillness is not wasted time. It is mental maintenance. Decluttering the mind is a continuous process. Every day distractions arise, emotions build up, unnecessary thoughts creep in. But a strong mind filters relentlessly. It does not allow mental junk to accumulate. It stays light, sharp, and ready for whatever comes next. A cluttered mind hesitates. A clear mind acts. A cluttered mind reacts. A clear mind decides. A cluttered mind overthinks. A clear mind moves forward. This is the power of mental minimalism, the ability to remove the excess, to strip away everything unnecessary, leaving only focus, strength, and resolve. A mind stripped of excess is a mind that operates with precision. By removing distractions, overthinking, and unnecessary emotional weight, it creates space for something even more powerful: stillness. In a world that glorifies noise, constant movement, and endless stimulation, stillness is seen as unproductive. But those who master it gain an advantage that few understand. True strength is not found in constant activity, but in the ability to remain steady while the world moves around you. Most people live in a state of internal restlessness. Their thoughts race, their emotions shift unpredictably, and they are constantly reacting to their environment. They are uncomfortable in silence, unable to sit with their own mind without reaching for a distraction. They seek stimulation to fill every empty space, scrolling through screens, engaging in unnecessary conversations, filling moments of stillness with noise. But a mind that never experiences stillness never experiences clarity. It becomes tangled in its own chaos, unable to process emotions fully, unable to think deeply, unable to find peace. A strong mind is not one that is constantly busy. It is one that knows when to pause. It does not fear silence. It does not feel the need to react to everything. It understands that stillness is not wasted time, but the foundation of mental mastery. It is in silence that the deepest insights emerge, that emotions settle, that the mind becomes truly disciplined. Silence is often misunderstood as weakness. People associate it with passivity, with not having an opinion, with being disengaged. But silence is one of the most powerful forms of control. A person who doesn't feel the need to speak unnecessarily is a person who doesn't need validation. They do not seek to prove themselves in every conversation, nor do they waste words defending their ego. Their silence is not absence. It is strength under control. One of the greatest benefits of stillness is that it allows for self-awareness. Most people go through life without truly knowing themselves. They are too distracted, too consumed by external input, too caught up in their own reactions to ever observe their mind clearly. But stillness removes the noise. It forces a person to face their thoughts directly, to see their own emotional patterns, to understand what truly drives them. It is in these moments of quiet that real self-mastery begins. Stillness also sharpens emotional control. Many people react impulsively because they never create space between stimulus and response. They hear something offensive and immediately retaliate. They feel anger and immediately act on it. They experience fear and immediately retreat. But a person who practices stillness does not react mindlessly. They allow emotions to surface without being controlled by them. They create space, a pause in which they can observe, analyze, and choose their response instead of being led by impulse. A person who masters stillness also masters patience. Most suffering comes from a lack of patience, wanting results immediately, wanting conflicts resolved instantly, wanting every situation to unfold on their own timeline. But life doesn't move at the speed of desire. It moves according to its own rhythm. A person who cannot sit in stillness becomes frustrated when things do not happen as quickly as they want. But a person who embraces stillness understands that nothing is rushed and nothing is forced. They operate with patience, trusting that their actions will lead to results without needing immediate proof. Stillness also builds mental endurance. People who cannot sit in silence often struggle with focus, discipline, and control over their thoughts. They are easily distracted, easily influenced, easily swayed by external forces. But a person who is comfortable in stillness has trained their mind to resist distraction. They do not need constant stimulation. They do not seek constant entertainment. They can focus on one task deeply for long periods without losing clarity. Silence is also a source of power in communication. Most people speak too much. They talk to fill silence, to seek approval, to assert dominance, to prove their intelligence. But true intelligence does not need to be proven. A person who speaks only when necessary is a person whose words hold weight. They do not waste language on meaningless conversations, nor do they feel the need to explain themselves endlessly. Their silence commands attention, because when they do speak, their words are chosen carefully. The ability to remain silent in conflict is one of the greatest signs of strength. Many people argue for the sake of arguing. They respond to every insult, every provocation, every disagreement. They believe that winning an argument means proving their point. But a person who has mastered stillness does not engage in battles that are beneath them. They do not respond to every challenge, nor do they allow their emotions to pull them into unnecessary disputes. Their silence is not submission. It is a refusal to waste energy on the unworthy. Stillness also allows for deeper thinking. The modern world does not encourage deep thought. It encourages quick opinions, surface-level reactions, and constant engagement. But deep thought requires silence. It requires space for ideas to form, for insights to emerge, for clarity to develop. A person who does not practice stillness never truly thinks. They react, they consume, but they do not reflect. Another reason stillness is powerful is that it creates a sense of detachment. Most people are too attached to external events, allowing every situation to affect their emotions. They feel the need to control everything, to fix every problem, to make sure everything goes their way. But a person who practices stillness develops detachment from outcomes. They do not cling to expectations. They do not chase external validation. They move through life with a sense of inner stability, knowing that their peace does not depend on external circumstances. Silence also reveals who is in control. In any interaction, the one who speaks less often holds the most power. The one who does not react impulsively controls the dynamic. People who lack control cannot stand silence. They feel the need to fill it, to justify themselves, to keep the conversation going. But a person who is comfortable in silence makes others uncomfortable. Their presence alone commands respect, because they are not seeking approval. They are simply existing in a state of inner control. Stillness is also the foundation of resilience. A person who cannot be alone with their thoughts, who cannot sit in silence without distraction, is a person who has no control over their own mind. They seek external noise to drown out internal discomfort. But a person who embraces stillness has conquered themselves. They do not need distraction to feel at peace. They do not need constant movement to feel productive. They understand that real strength is not about doing more. It is about being still in the face of everything. Practicing stillness is simple but difficult. It requires breaking the addiction to noise, to stimulation, to constant activity. It requires learning to be alone with thoughts without needing to escape. It requires the ability to observe emotions without reacting to them. It requires the patience to wait, to endure, to allow things to unfold without force. A person who can master stillness can master anything. They move through life unaffected by chaos. They are steady when others panic. They are calm when others overreact. They are silent when others argue. They are present when others are distracted. They see clearly when others are blinded by noise. In a world that rewards busyness, the ability to be still is the ultimate rebellion. It is not weakness. It is the highest form of self-mastery. Stillness creates a mind that is calm under pressure, unshaken by chaos, and free from unnecessary distractions. But stillness alone is not enough. A mind that is too comfortable, too shielded from difficulty, becomes fragile. Strength is not built in ease. It is built in discomfort. Those who seek only comfort remain weak, while those who deliberately embrace discomfort develop resilience that nothing can break. Pain, struggle, and hardship are not barriers. They are training tools. The Stoics understood this deeply. They did not wait for difficulty to appear. They sought it out. They placed themselves in controlled discomfort so that when real hardship arrived, they were already prepared. Most people fear discomfort. They avoid pain, whether physical, emotional, or mental. They seek convenience at every turn. They live in controlled environments where food is abundant, temperatures are regulated, and effort is minimized. This makes them weaker, not stronger. A person who never trains their mind or body to endure discomfort collapses at the first sign of struggle. They panic in adversity. They break under pressure. Their threshold for hardship is low, and because of this, life overwhelms them. A strong mind does not seek comfort. It seeks growth, and growth does not happen in ease. Growth happens when the mind is pushed beyond its limits, when it learns to endure discomfort rather than avoid it. The ability to reframe pain as a tool rather than a burden separates those who thrive from those who struggle. Pain is not an enemy. It is the greatest teacher, the most powerful form of training, the sharpest forge for mental toughness. The first step in using discomfort as a training tool is shifting perception. Most people see pain as a problem, as something to remove as quickly as possible. But pain is a signal. It reveals weakness, highlights areas that need improvement, and exposes limits. A person who avoids pain avoids growth. The mind must be retrained to interpret discomfort as progress. When something is difficult, it means strength is being built. When something is painful, it means limits are being expanded. The body strengthens through resistance. The mind works the same way. A powerful way to train this mindset is through voluntary hardship. The Stoics understood that suffering is inevitable in life. Instead of waiting for hardship to arrive unexpectedly, they practiced suffering on purpose. They fasted to experience hunger. They slept on hard floors to remove dependence on comfort. They exposed themselves to the cold, to physical strain, to social rejection, not because they had to, but because they knew it would make them stronger. This practice removed fear. It showed them that they could endure discomfort and survive. It made them resilient before life had a chance to test them. Most people never test themselves. They never go hungry unless forced. They never step outside their comfort zone unless required. They avoid everything that causes discomfort, believing that they are protecting themselves. But in doing so, they weaken themselves. A person who never fasts never learns that hunger is temporary and controllable. A person who never faces rejection remains terrified of disapproval. A person who never experiences discomfort becomes addicted to ease, and this addiction creates fragility. Physical hardship is one of the most effective ways to train the mind. The body and mind are not separate. A weak body often signals a weak mind. Those who train their body through discomfort, whether through exercise, exposure to extreme temperatures, or endurance challenges, develop mental toughness alongside physical strength. This is why elite athletes, soldiers, and extreme adventurers possess an unshakable mindset. They have conditioned themselves to endure. They do not quit when things get difficult, because difficulty is their training ground. Emotional discomfort must also be trained. Many people fear confrontation, rejection, failure. They avoid difficult conversations, suppress their emotions, and retreat from situations that make them uneasy. But emotional strength is built the same way as physical strength, through exposure. A person who never faces their fears remains controlled by them. A person who never speaks up remains unheard. A person who avoids conflict remains weak in relationships. The way to build emotional toughness is to face discomfort rather than escape it. Discomfort also removes entitlement. Many people expect life to be easy. They believe they deserve convenience, luxury, and smooth experiences. But life does not operate on entitlement. It operates on adaptation. Those who expect ease are caught off guard when challenges arise. They feel wronged, frustrated, victimized. But those who train in discomfort expect nothing. They do not assume that things should be easy. They do not seek pity when things are hard. They accept struggle as part of life and move forward without complaint. A person who voluntarily embraces discomfort no longer fears difficulty. They do not panic in adversity because they have trained themselves to handle it. They do not break under pressure because they have already placed themselves under controlled stress. They develop the ability to endure, to persist, to remain unfazed by struggle. This is not just resilience, it is a complete removal of fear. Training the mind through discomfort also eliminates excuses. Many people say they cannot do things because they are too tired, too busy, too uncomfortable. But these are illusions. The body and mind are capable of far more than they are given credit for. The person who consistently places themselves in discomfort discovers this truth. They learn that hunger does not kill them, that exhaustion is temporary, that fear is an illusion. They stop using minor discomfort as an excuse and start doing what needs to be done, regardless of how they feel. Another powerful result of discomfort training is detachment from material excess. Many people are dependent on luxury, on comfort, on external validation. They believe they need a certain lifestyle to be happy. But a person who practices discomfort removes attachment. They train themselves to live with less, to find peace in simplicity, to develop contentment independent of material things. This makes them immune to loss. If they lose wealth, they do not panic. They have already trained themselves to survive without it. If they lose social approval, they do not suffer. They have already trained themselves to stand alone. They are not bound by comfort. They are free. A major part of reframing pain is understanding that the worst suffering is self-inflicted. Most emotional pain does not come from external events. It comes from how those events are interpreted. Hardship itself is neutral. It is the mind's resistance that creates suffering. Those who train in discomfort learn to remove resistance. They accept pain rather than fight it. They do not complain. They do not dwell on difficulty. They do not wish things were different. They endure without excess emotion, without unnecessary suffering. One of the greatest gifts of discomfort training is self-trust. Many people do not trust themselves because they have never tested themselves. They do not know if they can handle pain because they have never experienced it willingly. They do not know if they can endure struggle because they have always avoided it. But a person who has faced discomfort repeatedly develops an unshakable belief in their own resilience. They know they can handle pain. They know they can survive hardship. They know they can endure anything life throws at them. This confidence cannot be faked. It is earned. Reframing pain also removes dependency on motivation. Many people rely on feeling motivated to take action. If they do not feel like doing something, they avoid it. But a person who has trained in discomfort no longer needs motivation. They do what must be done whether they feel like it or not. They have trained themselves to move forward in difficulty, to take action despite resistance, to persist even when everything inside them wants to quit. True mental toughness is not built in comfort. It is built in deliberate suffering. It is built in pushing beyond limits, in facing discomfort head-on, in embracing pain as a sharpening tool rather than something to escape. Those who understand this do not seek ease. They seek growth. They do not run from hardship. They run toward it. And because of this, they become unbreakable. A person who has trained in discomfort is ready for anything. They do not crumble under pressure. They do not complain when life is unfair. They do not hesitate when things get difficult. They move forward regardless of circumstances. And, in doing so, they develop something rare, a mind that is stronger than pain itself. Pain tests the limits of endurance. A mind that embraces discomfort does not break easily, but there is a deeper level of strength beyond simply facing hardship. The ability to outlast, to remain standing when others have given up, is the ultimate test of resilience. The strongest people are not the ones who never struggle. They are the ones who refuse to stop, who push forward even when the odds are against them, who endure longer than anyone else. This is the last man standing principle, the power of staying in the fight when others fall away. Most people do not fail because they lack talent, intelligence, or skill. They fail because they quit too soon. They reach a certain level of discomfort and convince themselves that it is too much. They stop before they find out what they are truly capable of. But those who succeed are the ones who keep going. They understand that most battles are won by the ones who refuse to leave the battlefield. Life is not about quick victories. It is about lasting longer than the resistance. The ability to outlast difficulties comes down to mental endurance. A weak mind looks for an exit when things become hard. It seeks an easier path, a shortcut, a way to escape discomfort. But a strong mind understands that endurance itself is the victory. Every challenge is a test of who will keep standing the longest. Those who endure are the ones who eventually win, not because they were the best, but because they were the last ones left. Endurance is not about physical strength alone. It is about the ability to withstand emotional, mental, and psychological pressure. Many people can handle short bursts of effort. They can work hard for a short period, stay disciplined when things are going well, and push themselves when motivated. But what happens when motivation disappears? What happens when progress is slow? What happens when success is not immediate? This is when most people give up, and this is exactly where the strongest separate themselves from the rest. A person with endurance does not rely on motivation. They do not wait to feel inspired. They act based on discipline, not emotion. Most people stop because they think they have reached their limit. But limits are an illusion. The body and mind are capable of far more than they appear to be. Pain, exhaustion, and frustration do not mean stop. They mean keep going. They mean progress is happening. They mean strength is being built. The ability to endure is a mindset. It is the refusal to surrender. It is the understanding that hardship is temporary, but quitting is permanent. Those who outlast their challenges always end up ahead, not because they never struggled, but because they stayed standing while others fell. They did not need immediate results. They did not require constant validation. They moved forward even when no one was watching, even when nothing seemed to be happening, even when everything inside them wanted to quit. A major obstacle to endurance is self-doubt. Many people quit not because they are incapable, but because they convince themselves that they are. Their minds create a false narrative that tells them they are too tired, that the challenge is too great, that they are not strong enough. But self-doubt is a liar. It does not speak the truth. It speaks fear. The only way to defeat it is to ignore it and keep moving forward. Patience is also a key part of endurance. Many people want instant results. They work hard for a short time and expect immediate progress. But endurance is the ability to keep going, even when progress is invisible. Many of the greatest victories in life happen long after most people would have stopped. The ones who succeed are the ones who were willing to wait, to persist, to push forward, even when they saw no immediate rewards. Another powerful aspect of endurance is resisting the urge to escape discomfort. Most people quit, not because they cannot continue, but because they allow themselves an exit. They tell themselves that if it becomes too difficult, they can stop. But true endurance means removing the option to quit. It means committing fully, not leaving space for retreat, not entertaining the idea of stopping. A mind that has no escape will always find a way to keep going. Mental endurance is also built through deliberate practice. A person who never challenges their limits never expands them. Those who consistently push themselves beyond what is comfortable develop an unshakable mindset. They normalize difficulty so that what once seemed impossible becomes routine. They make struggle a habit, not something to be feared, but something to be expected and embraced. Endurance is also about emotional control. Many people quit because they let emotions dictate their actions. They feel frustrated, discouraged, or exhausted, and they assume that means they should stop. But emotions are temporary. They do not determine ability. A person who outlasts difficulty does not allow emotions to make decisions. They feel exhaustion, but continue working. They feel frustration, but stay focused. They feel like stopping, but refuse to listen. A strong mind adapts to adversity. It does not expect the path to be smooth. It expects resistance. It welcomes it. It understands that difficulty is part of the process. A person who quits when things become hard was never truly committed. They were only willing to continue as long as it was convenient. But true endurance means continuing even when every step is difficult. Resilience is another crucial part of endurance. Many people can handle one challenge, but collapse when multiple struggles hit at once. They feel overwhelmed, discouraged, and paralyzed by the weight of everything. But a person with endurance is not easily shaken. They do not panic when faced with multiple difficulties. They tackle one problem at a time without losing control, without letting stress dictate their actions. Another reason people fail to endure is attachment to comfort. A person who is addicted to ease will always struggle with endurance. They want results without suffering. They want progress without resistance. But endurance means choosing struggle over ease, choosing long-term success over short-term relief. It is about the willingness to be uncomfortable for as long as necessary. Those who develop endurance also develop confidence that cannot be shaken. A person who has been tested, who has suffered and persisted, knows their own strength. They do not need external validation. They do not seek reassurance. They have already proven to themselves that they can withstand anything. This kind of confidence is rare because it cannot be faked. It is built through experience. Endurance is also about consistency. Many people work hard in short bursts, but fail to sustain it. They give great effort for a short time, but then stop. But success is about who can last the longest. A person who puts in steady effort over years will always outlast someone who burns out after a few weeks. Those who succeed are not necessarily the fastest, the strongest, or the smartest. They are the ones who keep moving forward, no matter what. A person with endurance does not fear time. Many people give up because they believe progress is taking too long. But endurance means trusting the process. It means understanding that time is an ally, not an enemy. Those who stay the course long enough always reach the destination, while those who quit never know how close they were. A key to developing this mindset is embracing failure as part of the journey. Many people stop after failure because they see it as proof that they are not good enough. But those who endure do not fear failure. They see it as feedback, as part of the process, as something to learn from rather than something to avoid. Failure only stops those who let it. Endurance is about who will remain standing when everything is against them. It is not about being the strongest at the beginning. It is about being the last one left when others have fallen. The ones who succeed in life are not the ones who never struggled, but the ones who refused to stop. They endured longer. They stayed in the fight when everyone else quit. And because of this, they won. A person who has mastered endurance is unstoppable. They do not break under pressure. They do not stop when things become hard. They do not allow temporary discomfort to dictate permanent decisions. They persist when others surrender, continue when others retreat, and finish when others have long since given up. In the end, success is often about nothing more than who refuses to quit the longest. The last one standing is always the one who wins. Endurance is the difference between those who collapse under pressure and those who stand firm when everything is against them. But endurance alone is not enough. A person who lasts the longest must also be mentally unbreakable. They must not only survive hardship but thrive under pressure. They must develop a mind so tough that no setback, no criticism, no failure can shake them. This is where psychological callousing becomes essential. The process of hardening the mind so that nothing can break it. Most people are fragile. They avoid discomfort, take failure personally, and let small obstacles derail them. Their minds have never been conditioned to handle resistance, so when difficulty appears, they crumble. A mind that has not been trained to endure pressure reacts emotionally, overthinks minor setbacks, and gives up at the first sign of struggle. But a mind that has been toughened through deliberate exposure to hardship operates differently. It doesn't panic under stress. It doesn't seek escape when things become difficult. It is hardened against fear, rejection, failure, and pain. It doesn't break because it has been trained to withstand anything. A person with a calloused mind has removed sensitivity to difficulty. They do not see challenges as overwhelming. They do not take criticism as an attack. They do not let rejection define their worth. They have built a mental barrier that shields them from emotional weakness. This is not indifference. It is not apathy. It is the ability to absorb pressure without being crushed by it. It is the ability to take loss, failure, discomfort, and hardship without allowing it to weaken resolve. The process of psychological callousing begins with exposure to adversity. A mind that is never challenged never strengthens. Just as physical calluses form when the skin is repeatedly exposed to friction, mental toughness is developed through repeated exposure to difficulty. Each hardship, each struggle, each moment of discomfort adds another layer of resilience. The more a person experiences controlled stress, the less reactive they become. Many people struggle with emotional fragility because they avoid situations that test them. They retreat from discomfort. They shy away from confrontation. They insulate themselves from anything that might challenge their confidence. But avoidance does not build resilience. It builds weakness. The only way to toughen the mind is by facing what is feared, enduring what is difficult, and pushing through what is uncomfortable. Failure is one of the most effective tools for hardening the mind. Most people fear failure because they see it as a reflection of their worth. They take it personally, allowing it to weaken their confidence. But a person with a calloused mind does not react emotionally to failure. They see it as data, as feedback, as a necessary step toward progress. They do not break down when they fall short. They adjust. They correct. They keep moving forward. Criticism is another test of mental resilience. Many people crumble under negative opinions, becoming defensive, hurt, or discouraged. But a calloused mind does not absorb criticism emotionally. It filters feedback with logic, keeping what is useful and discarding the rest. It does not allow words to shake its foundation. It does not seek approval. It does not crave validation. A person who has built this level of toughness is immune to the opinions of others because they do not tie their worth to external judgment. Rejection is also a powerful conditioning tool. Many people fear rejection because they attach their identity to being accepted. They let the opinions of others dictate their self-worth. But those who have hardened their minds see rejection as irrelevant. They understand that rejection is a redirection, not a reflection. They do not internalize it. They do not waste energy on what they cannot control. They move forward without hesitation, knowing that rejection is part of the process, not a barrier to it. Emotional control is at the core of psychological callousing. Most people allow their emotions to dictate their actions. They react impulsively, make decisions based on temporary feelings, and let frustration cloud their judgment. But a tough mind is not ruled by emotion. It acknowledges feelings without obeying them. It does not let anger lead to rash decisions. It does not let sadness prevent action. It does not let fear stop progress. Emotions are recognized but not given control. A key aspect of mental toughness is normalizing hardship. Many people struggle because they expect life to be easy. They believe that difficulty is a sign that something is wrong, but a calloused mind expects resistance. It does not see struggle as unfair or unfortunate. It sees it as part of the process. When setbacks happen, a tough mind does not ask, "Why me?" It asks, "What's next?" It does not dwell on misfortune. It adapts. Another critical part of this mindset is self-reliance. Many people depend on external motivation to take action. They need encouragement, support, or ideal conditions to push forward. But a mentally tough person does not wait for motivation. They act regardless of how they feel. They do not need validation to continue. They do not need reassurance to believe in themselves. Their confidence comes from their own experience, their own persistence, their own proof of endurance. A major weakness in most people's mindset is seeking comfort as a default. They want to be happy, relaxed, and at ease as often as possible. But a calloused mind is not dependent on comfort. It does not expect things to be convenient. It does not seek the easiest path. It welcomes struggle because it understands that strength is built through discomfort, not through ease. A person who has hardened their mind does not panic when things go wrong. They remain composed. They adapt. They adjust. They continue forward. Psychological callousing also removes the victim mentality. Many people see themselves as victims of circumstances. They blame their problems on other people, external situations, or bad luck. But a tough mind takes full responsibility. It does not waste energy complaining. It does not look for sympathy. It does not seek excuses. It owns every situation and focuses only on what can be controlled. The ability to handle stress is another sign of mental resilience. Many people become overwhelmed when faced with pressure. They freeze, they overthink, they doubt themselves. But a calloused mind does not fold under stress. It performs under pressure. It does not let deadlines, competition, or uncertainty create panic. It remains steady, rational, and effective. A person who has built this level of toughness becomes unstoppable. They no longer hesitate. They no longer seek an easy way out. They no longer let external forces control their inner state. They do not complain. They do not break down under failure. They continue moving forward no matter what. Training the mind this way requires deliberate practice. Just as a body does not become strong by accident, a mind does not become resilient without effort. It must be exposed to difficulty repeatedly. It must be pushed beyond comfort. It must experience struggle and come out stronger each time. Most people never train their mind. They live in a fragile state, reacting emotionally, avoiding discomfort, and surrendering to resistance. But those who choose to condition their mind become rare. They become the ones who succeed where others fail, who persist where others quit, who endure when others collapse. The final test of mental toughness is remaining unshaken in adversity. A person who has built this mindset does not panic when life becomes difficult. They do not lose focus. They do not seek escape. They do not crumble under pressure. They keep moving forward no matter what obstacles appear. A calloused mind is a mind that cannot be broken. It is a mind that sees struggle and keeps going. It is a mind that does not fear failure, rejection, or discomfort. It is a mind that operates at full strength, no matter the situation. Those who develop this level of toughness become unstoppable in everything they do. They do not need easy conditions to succeed. They do not need perfect circumstances to perform. They have conditioned themselves to thrive under any pressure, in any environment, against any challenge. A fragile mind will always be controlled by its circumstances. A calloused mind controls itself, and because of this, it controls its future. A mind that has been hardened through psychological callousing no longer bends under pressure, no longer breaks when faced with hardship. But toughness alone is not enough. The ability to withstand difficulty must be combined with the ability to respond with precision, rather than react emotionally. Strength is not just about endurance, it is about control. The difference between those who are ruled by their emotions and those who remain composed under stress is the ability to respond with logic instead of reacting on impulse. Most people are controlled by their emotions. They react instantly to everything: anger, frustration, fear, irritation, without stopping to think. They lash out when offended. They panic when something goes wrong. They make impulsive decisions, later regretting their lack of discipline. Their minds are slaves to immediate emotions. But those who develop the Stoic reflex operate differently. They do not let external events dictate their inner state. They don't allow fleeting emotions to control long-term actions. They don't react. They respond. A reaction is immediate, emotional, and uncontrolled. A response is deliberate, logical, and measured. This difference is what separates a strong mind from a weak one. Most conflicts, mistakes, and regrets happen because people react before they think. Words are spoken that cannot be taken back. Decisions are made that cause unnecessary problems. Actions are taken that create more harm than good. But a person who has mastered control never allows their emotions to decide for them. They pause, they analyze, they act with purpose. The ability to control reactions is not about suppressing emotion. It is about mastering the space between stimulus and response. The moment something happens, there is a small gap before action is taken. Most people ignore this gap, reacting automatically. But this gap is where power exists. It is the space where a person chooses whether they will act from logic or from emotion. Those who strengthen this ability no longer make decisions they regret. They no longer get caught in unnecessary conflicts. They no longer allow outside forces to dictate their behavior. Training the mind to delay reactions is one of the most powerful ways to build self-control. The natural impulse is to act immediately, but the person who resists this impulse gains a huge advantage. They remain composed when others lose control. They stay steady when others are overwhelmed. They maintain focus when others are distracted. They do not allow external events to trigger irrational behavior. One of the greatest benefits of this mindset is avoiding unnecessary problems. Most people create their own difficulties by reacting impulsively. A careless word spoken in anger leads to a fight that could have been avoided. A rash decision made in frustration leads to long-term consequences. A knee-jerk emotional response turns a small inconvenience into a major issue. But a person who masters the art of responding instead of reacting prevents unnecessary chaos. They think before they act. They choose their words carefully. They do not let a temporary feeling create permanent damage. This ability also leads to superior decision-making. Many mistakes are made because people act too quickly. They allow pressure, fear, or anger to push them into hasty choices. But strong minds do not rush. They do not make decisions based on impulse. They assess the situation, look at the facts, and respond only when they are certain of their course of action. This ability to remain calm under pressure allows them to consistently make better choices than those who act emotionally. Controlling reactions also creates emotional resilience. Most people are easily disturbed by external events. A rude comment, a small inconvenience, or an unexpected difficulty can ruin their entire mood. They become irritated, upset, or discouraged over minor issues. But those who have trained themselves to respond rather than react are unaffected by small disturbances. They do not let petty problems control their emotions. They maintain their internal stability no matter what happens. This mindset also strengthens relationships. Many conflicts in friendships, families, and workplaces are caused by uncontrolled reactions. A misunderstood statement leads to an argument. A moment of anger causes hurt feelings. An impulsive decision damages trust. But a person who controls their response prevents unnecessary conflict. They do not escalate situations with emotional outbursts. They do not take offense easily. They listen before speaking. They think before acting. Because of this, they maintain stronger, more stable relationships than those who react without thought. Developing this ability also leads to greater respect. A person who reacts emotionally is seen as weak, unstable, and easy to manipulate. But a person who remains calm in all situations commands authority. They are trusted. They are looked to for guidance. They gain influence not through force, but through composure. Their ability to control themselves gives them control over their environment. Training the Stoic reflex requires self-awareness. Many people react emotionally without even realizing it. Their minds are programmed to respond automatically, without conscious thought. But developing control means becoming aware of these impulses, and resisting them. It means noticing when emotion begins to take over and choosing to pause instead of acting immediately. This small change, the ability to delay action, is what separates a reactive mind from a disciplined one. Another key to this mindset is detachment from immediate emotions. Many people make poor decisions because they identify too strongly with their temporary feelings. They feel anger and believe they must act on it. They feel fear and assume they must retreat. They feel sadness and think they must dwell on it. But those who have mastered control do not let temporary emotions determine their long-term actions. They feel emotions, but they do not obey them. They recognize that feelings are fleeting and that acting based on them often leads to regret. Developing this ability also leads to increased mental strength. A person who cannot control their reactions is constantly at the mercy of their environment. They are easily provoked, easily upset, easily manipulated. But a person who responds instead of reacting becomes mentally untouchable. They do not take things personally. They do not allow emotions to override logic. They do not get dragged into unnecessary conflicts. They remain focused no matter what is happening around them. This mindset also leads to better conflict resolution. Many arguments spiral out of control because both sides react emotionally. One person says something harsh, the other responds in anger, and the situation escalates. But a person who has mastered control does not escalate conflict. They do not take offense easily. They do not match aggression with aggression. They de-escalate tension by remaining calm. They speak with clarity rather than emotion. Because of this, they resolve conflicts that others cannot. Another major benefit of training the Stoic reflex is avoiding regret. Many people look back on their actions and wish they had responded differently. They regret words spoken in anger, decisions made in haste, or actions taken without thought. But a person who has mastered self-control does not create situations they later regret. They move through life with intention, never letting emotions dictate their actions. The ability to respond instead of react also leads to greater personal power. Most people are controlled by their environment. They let external events dictate their mood, their actions, their decisions. But a person who controls their response is truly free. They are not swayed by outside forces. They do not need approval. They do not seek revenge. They do not react to insults, pressure, or manipulation. They act only when they decide it is necessary. Developing this ability requires constant practice. It is not something that happens overnight. It is built through small moments, pausing before speaking, thinking before acting, choosing to remain calm instead of reacting emotionally. Each time a person successfully resists an emotional reaction, they strengthen their ability to respond with logic instead of impulse. A person who masters this mindset becomes unshakable. They do not panic under stress. They do not let others control their emotions. They do not make decisions they later regret. They remain steady, focused, and composed in all situations. Most people are ruled by emotion. A person who learns to control their response instead of reacting impulsively becomes rare. They stand out. They are trusted. They are respected. They move through life without unnecessary conflict, without regret, and without being controlled by external forces. A reactive mind is weak. A responsive mind is strong. And the person who masters this discipline gains control, not just over themselves, but over everything around them. Mastering the ability to respond rather than react builds control over emotions, decisions, and actions. But self-control alone is not enough. A mind that remains steady in chaos must also be continuously strengthened. Mental resilience is not something a person is born with. It is something that must be trained, challenged, and built over time. Just like physical strength, mental toughness must be developed through resistance. The stronger the mind, the less likely it is to collapse under pressure. The more it is tested, the more it adapts. A weak mind crumbles when difficulty appears, but a strong mind thrives under it. Most people assume that mental toughness is either natural or unattainable, but this is false. Resilience is not fixed. It can be trained like a muscle. The difference between those who break under stress and those who endure is not genetics, luck, or talent. It is mental conditioning. Those who become unshakable do not arrive at strength by accident. They build it. They challenge their limits. They progressively push beyond what is comfortable, allowing their mental endurance to expand over time. A person who never tests themselves never discovers their full capacity. Most people avoid discomfort, taking the easiest possible path, believing that struggle is something to be avoided rather than embraced. But the truth is, a mind that is not challenged becomes weaker. Just like a body that is never exercised becomes fragile, a mind that is never tested becomes incapable of handling stress. Those who consistently expose themselves to difficulty grow stronger, while those who seek constant ease grow weaker. Mental training is no different from physical training. A person who lifts heavier weights over time develops stronger muscles. A person who exposes themselves to greater mental challenges over time develops stronger resilience. The key is progressive overload, increasing the difficulty of mental challenges gradually, pushing the threshold of endurance further with each test. This method works because the mind, like the body, adapts. A person who starts lifting weights begins with what they can handle. Over time, the weight increases and their body adjusts, becoming stronger. The same applies to mental endurance. A person who challenges their patience, their willpower, and their emotional control in small ways consistently will find that their threshold for discomfort expands. They can handle more stress. They can persist longer. They can withstand difficulty without breaking down. One of the most effective ways to train mental resilience is through controlled discomfort. A person who never puts themselves in uncomfortable situations remains unprepared for real adversity, but those who train themselves to be uncomfortable on purpose develop an advantage over those who avoid struggle. They push themselves into situations that force adaptation, that require endurance, that build fortitude. Self-discipline is a core element of mental weightlifting. Many people struggle with consistency because they rely on motivation. They act when they feel like it and stop when they don't. But true mental strength is built by showing up regardless of feelings. A person who disciplines themselves to act even when they do not want to builds mental endurance. They remove the habit of hesitation. They break the cycle of waiting for the right mood. They develop the ability to take action without needing external conditions to be perfect. Developing tolerance for stress is another key component. Many people fold under pressure because they have never built a high capacity for handling it. But those who deliberately expose themselves to stressful situations while maintaining composure expand their ability to withstand stress without panic. They train themselves to handle uncertainty, pressure, and high-stakes moments with calm precision rather than emotional breakdown. Mental fatigue is another challenge that must be overcome through training. Many people quit, not because they are physically incapable, but because they mentally convince themselves that they are too tired, too overwhelmed, or too discouraged. But fatigue is often an illusion. The body and mind can continue long after the feeling of exhaustion appears. Those who train themselves to push beyond perceived limits discover that they are far more capable than they originally believed. A major barrier to mental strength is the habit of avoidance. Most people run from situations that test them. They avoid difficult conversations, uncomfortable decisions, and challenging tasks. But avoidance weakens the mind. A person who actively chooses hardship over avoidance strengthens themselves every time they do so. They develop the ability to face challenges head-on rather than retreating from them. This method also removes emotional dependency. Many people rely on external validation, comfort, or reassurance to feel stable, but true mental strength comes from self-generated resilience. A person who builds inner stability does not need others to push them forward. They do not depend on encouragement to take action. They become mentally self-sufficient, moving forward regardless of who supports them or who doubts them. Training the mind also means developing patience. Many people quit because results do not appear immediately. They expect instant progress, and when it does not come, they assume they have failed. But endurance is built through long-term consistency, not through quick victories. A person who learns to persist despite slow results builds the patience that most people lack. Expanding focus is another crucial part of mental strengthening. Many people struggle to concentrate for long periods. Their attention is scattered, constantly interrupted by distractions. But mental strength includes the ability to sustain deep focus for long stretches of time. A person who disciplines their focus, who eliminates unnecessary distractions and strengthens their ability to work without interruption, gains an edge over those who cannot control their own attention. Another major component of this method is controlling emotional responses under pressure. A person who trains themselves to remain composed in difficult situations gains a level of power that most never reach. Emotional instability weakens decision-making, but a mind that remains steady even under intense pressure makes better choices, avoids unnecessary mistakes, and moves forward with clarity and control. Mental weightlifting also strengthens self-control. Many people struggle with impulse. They act on cravings, give in to distractions, and make choices that hurt them long-term. But a mind that has been trained through deliberate resistance develops a high level of control over thoughts, actions, and emotions. It does not give in to temptation easily. It does not fall for momentary pleasures that weaken discipline. It moves with long-term vision rather than short-term impulse. Another major benefit of this training is building resilience to failure. Most people are discouraged by setbacks. They lose confidence when things do not go as planned. But a person who strengthens their mind sees failure as part of the process. They do not collapse under disappointment. They use failure as a challenge, as an opportunity to grow. Each failure adds another layer of mental toughness, making them more resistant to discouragement than those who quit easily. A key aspect of mental strengthening is removing excuses. Many people justify their lack of effort by pointing to obstacles, bad circumstances, lack of time, external challenges. But those who train their minds to be strong do not allow excuses to control their actions. They push forward regardless of difficulty, refusing to let external conditions dictate their progress. One of the most powerful results of this method is developing an unshakable work ethic. Many people give effort only when it is convenient, but a mind that has been strengthened through resistance builds a habit of relentless effort, pushing forward no matter how they feel, no matter how difficult the task, no matter how long it takes. This level of strength also leads to mental independence. Many people look for guidance, direction, or approval before they act. But a person who has trained their mind to be strong does not seek permission. They do not need external encouragement to continue. They develop the ability to lead themselves, to hold themselves accountable, and to take full responsibility for their progress. The ability to persist when others quit is what ultimately separates those who succeed from those who do not. A person who trains themselves to handle increasing levels of discomfort, pressure, and resistance outlasts those who fold under minor stress. They develop an endurance that few people possess. Strengthening the mind is not about occasional effort. It is about continuous, deliberate conditioning. It is about challenging mental limits daily, refusing to settle for ease, and pushing beyond what is comfortable. Those who adopt this mindset gain an ability that few people will ever develop, the ability to thrive in any situation, under any condition, against any resistance. The mind is either strengthened or weakened every day. Those who train it like a muscle, who expose it to increasing resistance, who push its limits instead of retreating from them, those are the ones who become truly unstoppable. Strengthening the mind through deliberate resistance builds an unshakable ability to endure difficulty. But there is an even deeper challenge that most people never face: the battle against comfort itself. Comfort is deceptive. It feels good, it feels safe, and it provides a sense of relief from effort. But over time, it weakens the mind. A person who seeks comfort too often unknowingly destroys their own resilience. They become dependent on ease, unable to handle difficulty, incapable of functioning without controlled conditions. Mental toughness is not just about enduring stress. It's about rejecting the addiction to comfort. A mind that relies on easy conditions is fragile. It panics when things do not go according to plan. It crumbles when it does not get what it expects. It avoids anything that feels inconvenient, even if it leads to growth. But a mind that has been trained to seek discomfort instead of avoiding it becomes powerful. It learns to thrive in hardship. It does not fear struggle. It welcomes resistance because it knows that is where real strength is built. Most people do not realize they are addicted to comfort because they only experience mild discomfort in daily life. They control their environment to avoid anything unpleasant. They adjust the temperature to stay warm or cool. They eat whenever they are hungry to avoid the slightest feeling of deprivation. They avoid difficult conversations to escape conflict. They seek entertainment to prevent boredom. These small habits create a dependence on comfort that destroys mental resilience. A person who never steps outside of comfort never experiences their true capacity. The mind becomes weak when it is never tested. It loses the ability to function in discomfort, to push through challenges, to operate under stress. The more a person avoids discomfort, the more fragile they become. But those who deliberately expose themselves to hardship gain an advantage that most people will never have. Training the mind to reject comfort begins with small, controlled tests. A person who never allows themselves to feel hunger should practice fasting. A person who avoids physical exertion should push their body through exercise. A person who relies on convenience should intentionally take the harder path, walking instead of driving, carrying instead of using machines, doing things manually instead of seeking shortcuts. These small acts train the mind to tolerate discomfort instead of running from it. Stoics practiced voluntary hardship not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they understood its power. They deliberately slept on the floor to avoid becoming too dependent on luxury. They fasted even when food was available to prove they did not need it. They exposed themselves to the cold to remind themselves that comfort is not a necessity. This training ensured that when real hardship arrived, they were ready. They had already tested their limits. They had already hardened their minds against weakness. Modern society removes most natural difficulties. Technology, convenience and luxury have created a world where discomfort is rare. But this ease comes at a cost. People are less patient. They are more anxious. They struggle with small inconveniences because they have never built the ability to tolerate discomfort without complaining. Those who actively train themselves to handle difficulty develop a level of toughness that most people never reach. One of the biggest signs of mental weakness is needing comfort to function. A person who can only work in perfect conditions, who cannot endure small inconveniences, who requires ideal circumstances to take action is at the mercy of their environment. They are not in control. They are controlled by their need for ease. But a person who removes the need for comfort becomes unstoppable. They do not wait for the perfect situation. They do not need external conditions to be ideal. They function anywhere, in any situation, under any level of difficulty. Mental strength comes from exposure, not avoidance. Many people try to build resilience by thinking about it, reading about it, or planning for it. But resilience is not an idea. It is a habit. It must be trained through real experience. A person who has never experienced discomfort cannot handle it when it appears unexpectedly. But a person who seeks out discomfort regularly becomes immune to its effects. One of the most effective ways to train this is through deliberate deprivation. The mind becomes stronger when it learns that it can function without things it is used to. Sleeping without a blanket, taking cold showers, fasting for extended periods, spending time alone in silence. These are all small ways to prove to the mind that it does not need comfort to survive. The more a person removes unnecessary luxuries, the more they realize that they are not dependent on comfort. Breaking free from comfort also means removing the need for instant gratification. Many people struggle with discipline because they seek immediate pleasure. They want results now. They want success without effort. They want relief from stress immediately. But those who train themselves to delay gratification, to endure difficulty, to tolerate discomfort without seeking escape, become rare. They develop patience, endurance, and the ability to sustain effort longer than those who are controlled by their cravings. Rejecting comfort also removes emotional dependence. Many people seek external sources of comfort when they feel stressed. Food, entertainment, social validation, distraction. But a person who trains themselves to sit with discomfort rather than run from it develops emotional control. They do not seek immediate relief. They do not act impulsively to escape an unpleasant feeling. They become comfortable in discomfort, allowing their mind to process stress without reacting impulsively. Another key part of this training is embracing voluntary effort. Many people avoid doing hard things if they are not required. They take the easiest path in every situation. But those who force themselves to do things the hard way, even when an easier option is available, build a kind of toughness that is missing in most people. Carrying heavy things instead of using a cart, walking instead of driving short distances, waking up earlier than necessary, taking the longer route. All of these small habits train the mind to endure rather than avoid difficulty. A person who is no longer controlled by comfort becomes immune to panic under pressure. They have already trained themselves to function under stress, to remain calm in difficult situations, to take action even when things are unpleasant. They do not crumble when faced with difficulty because they have removed the habit of needing things to be easy. Breaking the attachment to comfort also removes dependency on motivation. Many people only take action when they feel like it. They wait for inspiration. They wait for the right mood. But those who train themselves to act regardless of feelings develop an advantage that most never will. They no longer need motivation because they do what needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not. A person who embraces discomfort removes all excuses. They no longer say, "I can't do this because I'm tired," or "I can't focus because I'm uncomfortable," or "I can't handle this stress." They no longer allow minor discomforts to control their actions. They operate with discipline, with focus, with endurance. They do not let feelings determine their effort. Comfort is the greatest enemy of mental toughness. It creates weakness, dependency, and fragility. But those who train themselves to function without comfort, to embrace discomfort, to operate under pressure without breaking, become mentally untouchable. They do not complain. They do not hesitate. They do not require easy conditions. Those who build this mindset become immune to suffering. They do not panic when things get hard. They do not retreat from struggle. They do not lose control when life becomes unpredictable. They move forward without hesitation, without waiting for things to be ideal, without relying on external conditions to dictate their ability to act. A fragile mind is controlled by comfort. A strong mind controls itself. And the person who masters this discipline removes the greatest obstacle to resilience, the need for ease. They do not seek struggle for its own sake, but they refuse to fear it. And because of this, they become the rarest type of person, the one who thrives in difficulty rather than being destroyed by it. A mind that is free from the need for comfort is a mind that cannot be controlled by external forces. It does not bend to cravings, does not retreat at the first sign of difficulty, and does not seek an easy way out. But there is a deeper level of resilience that only a few ever reach, the ability to remain completely unshaken no matter what happens. When chaos erupts, when uncertainty strikes, when everything seems to collapse, most people panic, react emotionally, and lose control. But those who have built an unshakable self stand firm. They do not let circumstances dictate their emotions. They do not let unexpected events pull them into a state of fear. They remain stable, grounded, and in control, no matter what storm surrounds them. Most people are not built for uncertainty. They seek predictability, safety, and reassurance. When life does not go as planned, they struggle. They get overwhelmed. They feel lost. They let external circumstances shape their internal state. But those who develop inner unshakability remove all dependency on external stability. They do not need life to be predictable because they have trained themselves to adapt. They do not need things to go smoothly because they've already prepared themselves for difficulty. They do not need external validation because their confidence is self-generated. This ability to remain steady no matter what separates those who survive adversity from those who collapse under it. Mental stability is not about denying emotions, nor is it about suppressing feelings. It is about controlling responses instead of being controlled by reactions. Most people feel fear, and they obey it. They feel stress, and they let it consume them. They feel anger, and they act on it impulsively. But those who develop an unshakable self acknowledge emotions without surrendering to them. They feel stress, but do not let it cloud their judgment. They feel frustration, but do not let it dictate their actions. They feel uncertainty, but do not let it weaken their resolve. Developing this ability requires breaking free from the illusion of control. Most people suffer not because of what happens to them, but because they resist what they cannot change. They fight against reality, trying to force things to be different. But those who develop stability accept what is outside their control without emotional disturbance. They do not waste energy wishing things were different. They adapt, adjust, and move forward without frustration. This ability to navigate life without resistance to the uncontrollable is what gives them an edge over those who constantly fight against what cannot be changed. Another key part of unshakability is not allowing temporary events to create permanent instability. Most people react emotionally to everything in the moment. If something goes wrong, they assume it is a disaster. If they fail, they assume it defines them. If they face a setback, they assume it will last forever. But a person who has built inner stability sees beyond the immediate moment. They do not judge an entire journey by a single obstacle. They do not assume failure means the end. They understand that everything is temporary, and they refuse to make long-term decisions based on short-term emotions. A major cause of instability in most people is over-identification with circumstances. They tie their sense of self to their success, their failures, their relationships, their external achievements. When things go well, they feel secure. When things go wrong, they feel lost. But a person who has developed an unshakable self does not attach their identity to external things. They are not their job. They are not their achievements. They are not their relationships. Their sense of self comes from within, not from what happens outside of them. This makes them impossible to break, because nothing external can take away their stability. The ability to remain grounded also requires detachment from emotional highs and lows. Most people chase happiness and avoid discomfort. They cling to pleasure and run from pain. This makes them vulnerable because they need things to go well in order to feel okay. But a truly unshakable person does not depend on emotional highs. They do not need excitement to function. They do not seek pleasure as a means of escape. They accept all emotions equally, without being controlled by any of them. They do not let good times make them complacent or bad times make them hopeless. This mindset also prevents overreaction to external opinions. Many people struggle because they allow what others think to determine their state of mind. A compliment lifts them up, while criticism breaks them down. They shape their self-worth based on external validation. But a person who is unshakable does not require approval to feel strong. They do not need praise to feel confident. They do not let criticism weaken their belief in themselves. Their inner stability is independent of what others say or think. Training this level of resilience also involves accepting discomfort without needing relief. Most people seek distractions when they feel uneasy. They numb themselves with entertainment, food, social media, or meaningless activity. But a person who has developed inner stability does not run from discomfort. They sit with it, face it, and process it without escape. They do not fear boredom, loneliness, or silence. They remain grounded even when nothing external is comforting them. Developing an unshakable self also means removing dependence on certainty. Most people want clear answers, predictable outcomes, and guaranteed results. When they do not get them, they feel anxious. But a strong mind does not need certainty to move forward. It embraces the unknown. It trusts its own ability to navigate uncertainty without panic. A person who does not fear the unknown becomes a person who is free to take action regardless of uncertainty. One of the strongest indicators of inner stability is remaining composed under pressure. Most people break when stress reaches a certain level. They lash out, shut down, or make rash decisions. But a person who has built this kind of resilience stays calm when others panic. They think clearly when others are overwhelmed. They maintain control over their actions, no matter how much external pressure exists. A person with this mindset also remains emotionally independent. They do not need someone else to make them feel okay. They do not rely on a relationship, friendship, or external connection to feel stable. They can stand alone without feeling lost. This does not mean they reject relationships. It means they do not require them for inner balance. They bring strength into relationships rather than looking for strength from them. Another critical aspect of stability is not allowing setbacks to alter long-term focus. Most people get distracted by temporary struggles. They lose sight of their bigger vision when something goes wrong. But a person with an unshakable self keeps moving forward regardless of the obstacles that appear. They do not abandon their principles because of difficulty. They do not quit because progress is slow. They remain focused no matter what happens. A mind that is unshakable also does not allow negative emotions to spiral out of control. Many people fall into cycles of overthinking, doubt, and discouragement. But a stable mind does not feed negative thoughts. It acknowledges them without indulging them. It redirects focus instead of sinking into self-pity. It moves towards solutions rather than dwelling on problems. Training this ability requires constant self-awareness. Many people go through life reacting automatically, without questioning their own habits, thoughts, or emotional responses. But a person who develops stability observes their own mind. They notice patterns of weakness and correct them. They identify triggers and remove them. They are constantly refining their ability to remain grounded in all situations. A person with this level of strength does not hesitate when faced with challenges. They do not freeze when difficulties arise. They do not get lost in fear when the future is uncertain. They take action without waiting for perfect conditions. They know that storms will come, and they prepare themselves to stand through them. Becoming unshakable is not about avoiding hardship. It is about becoming the type of person who thrives despite it. It is about building a foundation so strong that nothing can move it. The world is chaotic. Life is unpredictable. But those who develop this level of inner stability navigate every storm without fear. Most people will always be at the mercy of their circumstances. A person who builds unshakability becomes untouchable. They do not need life to go their way to feel strong. They do not need approval to feel worthy. They do not need certainty to take action. They have removed all weakness by removing dependency. A person who has built this level of mental strength can lose everything and still remain whole. Because nothing outside of them determines their ability to move forward. They do not hope for stability. They become it. A person who has built an unshakable self does not crumble under pressure, does not waver in uncertainty, and does not allow setbacks to dictate their actions. But there is one more layer to true mental resilience: the refusal to see oneself as a victim. The mindset that truly makes a person unbreakable is the no-victim mentality, the absolute rejection of blame, self-pity, and helplessness. It is the difference between those who remain stuck in life and those who take full ownership of their fate, no matter what challenges they face. Most people go through life believing that their struggles are caused by external forces. They blame circumstances, other people, and even fate for their problems. They tell themselves that life has been unfair to them, that they are powerless against the things that have happened to them, and that they cannot change their reality because they are at the mercy of forces beyond their control. This mindset is not just harmful. It is a trap that weakens the mind, kills motivation, and keeps a person stuck in suffering. The no-victim mindset is about rejecting all forms of helplessness. A person who develops this mentality does not waste time asking why things are difficult, why they have been treated unfairly, or why life has presented them with obstacles. They do not look for excuses. They do not dwell on injustice. They do not indulge in self-pity. They understand that no amount of complaining, blaming, or wishing things were different will change reality. They only focus on what they can control, and they take full responsibility for their response to every situation. Taking responsibility does not mean denying hardship. It does not mean ignoring past suffering or pretending that challenges do not exist. It means refusing to let those hardships define who you are. It means choosing to act instead of waiting for external circumstances to change. It means understanding that no matter what happens, the power to move forward is always in your hands. A person who refuses to see themselves as a victim removes all excuses. They do not say, "I can't do this because of my past," or "I can't succeed because of my circumstances," or "I can't change because life has been unfair to me." They do not wait for things to improve before they take action. They do not rely on luck, sympathy, or external rescue. They act regardless of how difficult things are because they know that waiting for fairness is a losing game. Most people hold on to a victim mentality because it feels safe. It provides a reason for why they are struggling. It allows them to shift the responsibility away from themselves. But this false sense of relief comes at a massive cost. It steals personal power. It convinces a person that they are unable to change their situation, when in reality, they are the only ones who can. Those who break free from this mindset realize that even in the worst circumstances, they always have the power to take action, to adapt, to grow, and to reclaim control over their own life. A major shift that occurs when a person rejects the victim mentality is that they stop feeling entitled to an easy life. Many people believe that if they work hard, if they are good people, if they follow the rules, life should reward them with comfort and fairness. But reality does not work that way. Challenges will come no matter how disciplined, kind, or intelligent a person is. The difference between those who suffer endlessly and those who thrive is that one group expects struggle and takes control, while the other feels cheated and waits for things to be made right. The Stoics trained themselves to view every hardship as an opportunity to grow. They did not waste energy wishing things were different. They did not dwell on unfairness. They did not allow pain to weaken them. They used every difficulty as training, as fuel to become stronger. They understood that the world does not reward those who complain. It rewards those who adapt, endure, and keep moving forward no matter what. One of the greatest advantages of this mindset is emotional stability. A person who refuses to see themselves as a victim does not get easily offended, does not take failures personally, and does not allow disappointments to break them. They are not controlled by resentment, jealousy, or bitterness. They do not hold on to past wrongs. They do not seek revenge or validation. They focus entirely on their own progress instead of obsessing over what others have done to them. This shift also leads to unstoppable resilience. Most people give up when things become too difficult because they feel defeated by their circumstances. But a person who does not see themselves as a victim does not have a breaking point. No amount of hardship convinces them that they are powerless. No setback makes them believe that they should stop trying. No failure makes them question their ability to succeed. They endure because they do not allow their mind to accept weakness as an identity. Another key part of this mindset is letting go of blame. Many people remain stuck because they are consumed by thoughts of how others have wronged them. They focus on betrayal, mistreatment, or missed opportunities caused by someone else's actions. But a person with a no-victim mindset does not waste energy on blame. They do not hold on to resentment. They do not wait for apologies. They do not let the past define them. They focus entirely on what they can do next, not on what has already happened. This mindset also prevents dependence on external validation. Many people struggle because they need others to acknowledge their pain, to validate their struggles, to recognize their suffering. But a person who has fully rejected the victim mentality does not need anyone to acknowledge their hardship. They do not seek permission to move forward. They do not need their story to be heard before they take action. They act because they choose to, not because they need others to approve of their strength. Developing this level of resilience also means removing emotional justifications. Many people avoid taking responsibility because they feel their emotions are an excuse. They say, "I can't do this because I feel depressed," or "I can't take action because I feel too stressed," or "I can't improve because I feel too tired." But a person with a no-victim mindset does not let emotions decide their actions. They acknowledge their feelings, but do not let them become an obstacle to progress. This mentality also builds independence. Many people wait for help, support, or permission before they move forward. But those who reject victimhood do not wait. They do not need someone else to believe in them before they take action. They become their own source of motivation, their own source of discipline, their own driving force. A person who masters this mindset never complains about difficulty. They do not dwell on what is missing, what is unfair, or what is hard. They focus only on solutions. They act without hesitation. They adapt without resistance. They move forward without excuses. This transformation creates a kind of unstoppable momentum. A person who once felt powerless now realizes they have always had control. A person who once waited for things to change now becomes the one who changes things. A person who once felt broken now recognizes that nothing outside of them has the power to keep them down. Many will go through life waiting for circumstances to improve, waiting for fairness, waiting for justice. But those who adopt this mindset understand that waiting is the greatest weakness. They do not wait. They take control, they move forward, and they shape their future with their own hands. This shift removes all limitations. It removes all doubt. It removes every excuse that once held them back. They stop seeing life as something happening to them and start seeing life as something they create. Most will remain trapped by their own thoughts, held back by the illusion that they are powerless. But a person who develops this mentality becomes one of the few who are truly free. Free from blame, free from excuses, free from dependency. They become completely untouchable. They do not break. They do not retreat. They become the master of their own fate. Everything you've just learned is the foundation of unbreakable mental strength. A mind that does not react impulsively, does not crumble under pressure, and does not surrender to excuses. A mind that is trained, disciplined and conditioned for any battle life throws its way. The weak seek comfort, but the strong seek resilience. The average look for external control, but the wise build inner fortitude. The fragile are ruled by emotions, but the mentally strong respond with logic and precision. This is what separates those who fall apart from those who rise above. Mental toughness is not about talent, luck, or circumstance. It is about deliberate training, about exposing yourself to difficulty, about rejecting the mindset of helplessness. It is about waking up every day with the understanding that no one is coming to save you, but you never needed saving to begin with, because you have everything within you to overcome, endure, and conquer. True strength is built in the daily battles, in saying no when it is uncomfortable, in facing fears rather than running from them, in eliminating distractions, removing mental clutter, and standing firm in your values, no matter how hard the world pushes against you. It is in letting go of victimhood, in refusing to be dependent on comfort, in conditioning your mind like a warrior preparing for war. The world will always test you. The question is, will you be ready? If this resonated with you, drop a comment below. I choose mental strength. Let the world know that you refuse to be weak, that you are committed to building an unshakable mind. And if you want to keep strengthening your mind, subscribe now and turn on notifications. The journey doesn't end here. There is more to learn, more to train, more to master. This is only the beginning.